Coming to you from the TLD studios in Temecula, California, it's the Whiskey Throttle Show, taking you deep inside the lives of the legends and leaders of our sport. This week's guest is brought to you by Yamaha, the leaders in the power sports industry. Motocross bikes, street bikes, adventure bikes, side-by-sides, quads, boats, generators. Yamaha sets the standard. Yamaha revs your heart. Method race wheels, the strongest, lightest, fastest wheels in off-road. Method dominates the off-road market with wheels for your truck, sprinter, Jeep, or UTV. Go to methodracewheels.com/whiskey throttle for 20% off your order. Troy Lee Designs, built for the world's fastest racers. TLD blends elite level protection with industry-leading style and performance. Moto, bike, helmet paint, casual wear, whatever your passion, Troy Lee Designs is waiting for you on the next level. Aiello Concepts, enhance your riding experience with superior products like the Start-Stop Conversion Kit, Fuel Petcocks, Frame Grip Tape, Lever Grip, Grip Donuts, Secondary On Switch, Billet Foot Pegs, Billet Throttle Housings, and so much more. Aiello Concepts produces exceptional products, all of which are made right here in America. And by SKDA. SKDA is the ultimate destination for exceptional motocross graphics, customer service, and artistic excellence. Trust them to elevate your ride and showcase your individuality on the track, making every ride an exceptional experience. It's June 2021, coming to you from the Spot Network studios here in Santa Ana, California. It's a Whiskey Throttle Show. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I am your host, David Pingree, and we've got a pretty cool guest today for you guys. This is somebody who was Bob Hanna's mechanic, won a bunch of championships with him. He was a race team manager at Factory Yamaha, race director. In fact, he's held just about every title you can at Yamaha, and recently retired Keith McCarty. Welcome to the show, Keith.
Thanks, Dave. Nice to be here.
Very excited to have you on. We don't get a lot of team managers and mechanics, but I want more of them because you guys have such great stories. And as we get into this, people will see you were involved with so many riders and so many different eras of the sport, and not just motocross, but road racing. And I'm not even sure what else. You were involved with everything. So
a little bit of everything.
I'm anxious to hear about it.
Yeah.
We kind of start off with the Method Race Wheels front end chatter. You guys are familiar with this. They're the lightest, strongest, fastest wheels in off-road racing. So if you've got a truck, van, sprinter, SUV, or UTV, check them out for all your needs on wheels. And I just wanted to start by asking you, what's your thoughts on the health of the sport of motocross right now?
Well, I went to the Apollo event, and I'm happy to report I thought that it was super healthy. The attendance was really good. It was probably one of the most perfect days of racing that I've been to in a very, very long time. The track was nearly perfect condition. The weather cooperated, was just a real nice ambient temperature with cool breeze and made it really comfortable for everybody watching. The crowds were massive, and orderly. So I was super surprised. It felt kind of cool coming in a little bit late and having your pass at World Call and going through and getting to talk to people and watch, 4 great motos. That was awesome.
And some incredible competition. I think this 450 class is maybe the best I've seen and most unpredictable since.
There's a lot of young kids coming up that are pushing the older guys or the more seasoned guys. So it's going to be really good right down to the end.
And what about just amateur racing and bike sales? I think one of the positives of COVID has been bikes are sold out across the board.
Sure. I think the economy from a motorcycle perspective, everybody's sharing in the wealth. The aftermarket companies, the manufacturers, promotions, I'm sure are going good, trinket sales, hats, t-shirts, all that jazz. So I think it's going to rebound very, very quick. It's still where it was for sure.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're right. I feel like there's been this decline with amateur racing a little bit, where folks aren't racing on the weekends as much. There's still a lot of riders, but it's just a weird dichotomy of, we got great bike sales, but the races aren't really that well attended at a local level still. So,
well, again, people not being able to work or losing their jobs in certain industries puts a big damper on a lot of things. And once that starts to rebound, I think, motorhome sales are big. Travel, everybody's pushing it to be able to get out into the open space. I'm pretty sure it'll come back too.
Yeah, I hope you're right. And our next thing I wanted to just touch on, I want to dedicate this show to Rocky Aiello, who passed this week. Pretty tragic deal. Don't know all the details of it, but he's been in our sport for decades, and I know he worked at Yamaha for a long, long time.
Yeah, we were close friends, and I'm really, really sad for him and his family for sure. It's just never easy to lose somebody like that.
It's a tough part of our sport, right? I know you've been involved long enough to see guys get badly hurt or killed, and does it ever, I know for me at times I go, man, what am I doing? I shouldn't even be riding these things. This is nuts.
Yeah.
But then you love it so much, you always come back.
Yeah, it's really tough from the points I've been in, is where you have to push somebody to their limits, but you just know how quick bad things can happen for people. And, your heart just goes out and you question a lot of the things you're doing if you were involved in any of that, but to lose people suddenly like Rocky or Mike Bell most recently, or Marty Smith before that and his wife. And it's just really, really, you reflect back on your times with them, but your heart goes out to their families too, because they're larger than life to them, I'm sure. So I really feel bad for them.
Yeah. And the moto community is pretty tight knit. Even if you don't know somebody super well, you still feel a connection to them a little bit.
Yeah.
And I remember, even when Jimmy Button got hurt, I remember I was racing that day and you were walking through the pits and I stopped you and I said, "Hey, is Jimmy okay?" And I could see the look on your face. And you just said, "No, he's not."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, that was one of the worst days of my career, because I was standing literally 5 feet away from where it happened and watched it happen. And I just couldn't put the injury, didn't relate to the sequence of what actually happened. It was so slow and seemingly nothing, and it turned out to be this giant
life-changing event. Yeah,
exactly. But I know he's not 100% like he used to be, but he's got his life, his kids, his family, his work, and he's one thing after the injury, and he got the job at Wasserman. I was so proud of him, how he does that job. He probably is one of the best agents or rider guys like that I've known or dealt with, because he's fair and equitable, but professional and knowledgeable, and has everybody's interest on the table. It's just, he's done a great job. So
yeah, I always love seeing guys make a good transition out of racing.
Sure.
And he did it under the worst of circumstances.
Yeah.
And he's been so successful. I'm not to sound condescending, but super proud of him. Hey, I want to remind you guys, get over to whiskeythrottleshow.com. We've updated our website completely. You can catch all our old shows there, buy merchandise. We've got a lot of neat things coming onto there, so check that out. We sure appreciate it. And let's get to our questions here. So I want to start, we kind of start at the very beginning here, Keith. Like, tell me where you grew up and what your childhood was like.
Yeah. I was born in Montebello, California, probably 40 miles from here. Grew up in Bellflower, down in the area. That's where I went to school, and, I graduated in 1971 from Downey High School, and I was working already as a dishwasher and car engine rebuilding place. And really all of my background, or my early years, was about automotive stuff. I went to the drag races a lot. Some guys on my block lived down there, taught me a lot about that. I was super interested in cars and car engines and things, and did a lot of stuff for my friends that could afford hot rods. I'd adjust the valves and timing and everything every Friday night so they'd go street racing. And, I'd have 2 or 3 cars lined up in front of my house, and I'd be out there doing it, go ride along with somebody and have a good time. But I really was kind of going down that path. And then, I don't know, my uncle took me dirt bike riding, one time. And I was like, man, it was just something totally new, because I had a lot of birth defects and problems when I was younger. I had open heart surgery when I was 7 years old. So I was not really developed, early on. So I was on the weaker side. But then by that time, I was stronger, getting stronger every year. And so, I could do a lot more physical things. And, but I really kind of got a passion for the motorcycle thing, and kind of started turning my direction that way. Me and my brother built some choppers and stuff, during that time. So Tri-Bonneville, Flathead, Harley, Panheads, and just different stuff. And so all types of motorcycling I was kind of getting involved in. And this job came around, I was working at an engine rebuilding place in Paramount, California, and car engine, and running a surface grinder and doing a bunch of different stuff. And this opening came up for Ralph Williams. Was a major car dealership in Southern California. He opened up a Suzuki dealership.
Okay.
So I went to work for them and helped open the store up. It turned out to be like a big tax thing, where he just was open for 6 months, which I didn't know. But I got some experience at the shop and helped open it up and close it down. But meanwhile, I met a couple of Japanese guys that were running the service area, and they went on to work at Suzuki in their racing department. And I got to be, one of them lived with us, me and my mom. And so then I started going to the pro races and stuff and, seeing the people that I was reading about.
What years would that have been?
71, really, that's when I graduated, but right around 71, 72, 73 area, But anyway, I ended up going to like the real early, maybe the first Coliseum with them, not working for them, but with them, and was changing tires and stuff,
helping out.
Just helping out where I could. And then it's like, man, I want to do this. So I kind of started directing myself that way. And it took me, I had to take a job at Suzuki in the warehouse before I got into the racing department, and it took about 1.5 years or 2 years. I was ready to leave thinking, well, this isn't working. And right away, I got a call in the racing department and started working there. And I don't know if it was November or I don't know what month, but anyway, right away got back in there and worked for Mike Reynard, my first guy, who turned out he later became a stunt guy in Hollywood. And that,
Okay.
Rich Thorwaldson were two of the first guys. And
So you worked for Rich?
I didn't work for him, but he was riding for them, and I did help out sometimes when his mechanic wasn't available. So we were really good friends with his family and such. And then Tony DeStefano right after that, while Billy Rossi was there, they were the next 2 years. Tony was my guy, and we actually won the first couple of championships for Suzuki, during that period. It was 75, I guess. 75 and 76, I think, was the year with him. But anyway, I was there for 4 or 5 years, and then came to Yamaha in 1977.
Let me slow you down. You're speeding on me. I want to back up a little bit.
Sure.
You said it in high school. I read somewhere you were in an auto shop class. Is that kind of where you started developing? Some of those skills?
Well, I was an assistant teacher for automotive adult education. So I would stay after, help the guy, teach people how to set a distributor in, check timing, change oils, whatever was going on with them. But yeah, that was the very beginning.
And so you already had, prior to those classes, you already kind of had some mechanical skills.
I was running the drives, helping my friends with their cars, putting engines in, transmissions, whatever. I really kind of into that.
And then what was your first bike? I think you said a YZ80?
It was a YZ80. I wanted the pressed steel frames. I don't remember the model number, But there was a riverbed near us, and with just kind of a sidebar, big dirt field with big jumps. I mean, we were launching these things off there, and I'm sure we looked like a bunch of goofballs, out there.
Jeans, probably.
Jeans, work boots and a helmet, short sleeve t-shirts or whatever. So, I'm sure by today's standards, not really smart, but we had a great time,
Best time ever, though, as a kid, right?
We used to ride in when they were prepping lots, there was a big Walmart near our house, and we'd ride over there, ride in that field, and everybody went to Lions Drive Strip on Wednesday nights and watch the racing, and then we'd come back and, do our thing, go to Bay Mare, which is a big track near Valencia and all that. Used to be really good. We go camping there and go riding and racing, and I was just, always involved in it, it was really.
So you raced as well?
I did, just a couple times, not much. We didn't have, my bike wasn't race worthy, but I got to borrow some bikes and everything. And again, I just wasn't that strong to be able to manage it all, but I had fun and loved being there and being a part of it, working on stuff,
You were passionate about it, just being involved,
Yeah, as kids, we had go-karts as kids and all that stuff all the time, and so, yeah.
So you knew right away, kind of at that point, you wanted to do something with the sport.
Yes.
Just weren't quite sure at that point. All right.
Yeah.
So you kind of already told us you got hired over at Suzuki 2 years in the warehouse, huh?
Yeah.
I mean,
that was good. It was
Did you learn a lot of that at that?
Well, I mean, you learned a lot of the parts, and I still would go over to the racing guys. I knew everybody in the racing shop, and on the weekends I would go with them to local races. So it's not like I was far from it, but just learning the processes of a company was really good. That was my first good company thing. I was an IBEW union guy in Suzuki's warehouse, and see how the unions can kind of jack a company over,
Oh yeah.
I mean, you got a little bit of that, but it was, it was a good thing, good camaraderie in there,
So you think all those things, from the dealership to that Suzuki job, sort of shaped you and really helped develop you to be ready for what you did at Yamaha?
Sure, exactly. Had a really deep understanding before I ever went there,
Yeah, I think a lot of folks, because I get asked a lot of time, hey, I want to get into the industry, be a mechanic or be involved, and they kind of want to. They go, I can build an engine, and they want to jump right onto a race team.
Yeah,
doesn't really work that way, right? I mean, you've got to pay your dues.
Yeah, you do. I mean, when you're saying that, I'm thinking the very first job I had, was when me and my brothers were building choppers, and there was a painter who we used to hang out with. His name was Johnny Seven, and there was a motorcycle shop, just a random shop. I worked in that shop separating nuts, bolts, and washers, because everybody's got that big box of crap that they don't know what to do with. Here, kid, I'm going to pay you $1 an hour, and this is what you're going to do. I'm like, okay, I was happy to do it, Yeah. What else? I'm done with that. What else can you do? So you can't be too proud that you won't do something, sweep a floor or whatever,
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, it was a big deal.
I think that's maybe a generational thing where we've lost some of that.
Yeah.
People come out of college or whatever.
We created it,
Yeah, and they want to just, no, I'm ready for management.
Yeah,
it's
right.
like, no. Go separate the nuts, bolts, and washers for a little bit, That's interesting. Okay, so I got to ask you, your time at Suzuki. One, you worked with Tony D.
Yeah.
I won a championship with him.
2.
What was that like? Tony
awesome.
was...
It was awesome. He was, he introduced me to some really good people and that were close to him. Very likable kid. It was sad to have him, have his injury with his eye and then his paralyzation. That was tough to. That wasn't with me. It was after I worked with him. But we were really close friends, and he was a real hardworking kid. I did what I needed to do, and the Suzuki thing was very different. We shared fans, me and Bernie Thompson. Steve Stackable rode for Suzuki during that period too, and me and Bernie were co-drivers and stuff, and so it was, the whole experience was just good for me. Getting out on the circuit in the very early days, it was kind of a cowboy thing, Bill West, the promoter, was around for the Florida Winter Series. Pat Ray, there's a number of guys, and it was probably one of the most remarkable things a kid from Southern California that had never really been out of Southern California, but on a family vacation to Missouri, got to do, in that age of your life. So it was great.
I loved the box fan days. I feel fortunate I got to experience it because, middle of my career, it went away and they kind of don't exist anymore. But were all 4 of you guys traveling in that one box van?
It wasn't a box van. There were 2 of us. Like, the riders weren't traveling. It was a regular Dodge Maxi van. That was our very first thing. And we went to the Florida Winter Series. We piled tires and 2 bikes, tires, suitcases, parts into that van, went to Florida, rented one of those garage space things and made that our base camp in Orlando. And then we just went from there to the different places in Florida to race. And the riders drove their own. Well, they may have flown, but most of them, Tony had his own van, and I don't know what Stacky did. But me and Bernie were in that van. Then we graduated to the box van. We thought, oh my God, this is amazing,
Yeah.
But it was time. It was good in a sense because it didn't put the whole burden on one person,
Sure.
Kind of eased me into it. Then when I went to Yamaha, it was, you're on your own. Here's your box van. Here's your box of parts. We'll see you at the racetrack kind of thing. That was eye-opening coming from Suzuki, but, worked out.
Well, I love the old photos, even from Europe, especially from Europe, because in the 70s, the bike's on an old wooden block, and they're in the back of a pickup, and DeCoster's laying in the shade of the truck on the grass,
No pressure washers.
No. I mean, it was...
If it's raining, there's a bucket under the edge of the tent to collect all the rainwater so you can wash your bike,
Yeah, it was very simple, just simpler times, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I think people lose sight of that, and I think it's neat to go back and imagine our pro riders living like that today.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know what to do.
I remember being in Czechoslovakia, the Motocross of Nations in that period, 70 something, and going in the outhouse, there's no toilet paper. There's a stack of notebook paper there, you're like, what? And you're tearing it and crumpling it, opening it and tearing it, and trying to get it ready for use, and it makes you start to appreciate your country and, what your life was like as a kid or whatever, those are but you deal with it, and just move on.
Czechoslovakia back then, you're lucky it wasn't just a hole out in the forest,
Yeah.
Okay, so and I got to ask about Rich Thorwaldsen because I'm actually related to him. He is my grandfather's cousin. So somehow there's a relation there, and I never got to meet him.
Yeah.
But awesome. I thought, man, to me, it's so cool that I was related to a guy who was that successful. Finished second, so we're both consummate runners up in championships. But what did you know about him? What can you tell me?
Oh, he was older when he started. He was a desert guy and it turned kind of motocross guy, if I'm not mistaken. And he was a little bit older, and that was probably when the great thing. Very mature. Never led people down the wrong way. Wasn't a party guy. Just was there to do the job. Very kind of like the Craig Monty thought before he started running his mouth. Was pretty, not super direct. Knew how to say it nicely,
Okay.
And I liked him a lot, and he was somebody that I could ask a question to and get a really straight answer,
Okay.
And but very respectful for everybody, and he was just a hardworking guy. They're just. He had talent, but there's a lot of younger guys that had that little bit of edge in fitness or whatever, and
sure.
That makes it a little tough. So,
and I want to say it was 77 where he got second in the 500 championship. Does that sound right to you?
I think it would have been.
Was it earlier than that?
I think it was earlier than that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think by that time, he probably stopped riding by that time. So it might have been 76 or even 75. I don't recall.
Okay. Huh.
I mean, that's why I say all those. I used to have all that stuff, and I know it. Like, if you asked me, I could tell you the top 10, but it's like, man, there's been too many races.
No, there's no way you can remember all that stuff. I just think it's interesting because I sat there one night before my grandpa passed away, and my grandpa was hilarious. He was very stoic, and he's just sitting there in his rocket chair. He goes, I had a cousin who raced once. And I'm like, oh yeah, really? You always hear, oh, I have a friend that raced, and he starts telling me about him, and his name was Rich Thorwaldsen. Because my grandfather's name was Svensson. He was Norwegian. And so he was very proud of that heritage. And so I go, Rich Thorwaldsen. I said, I think I've seen that name. And so I started asking him some more questions. He goes, yeah, I think he was pretty good, And I'm like, Grandpa, you're 92. You never told me about this before, So anyway.
Yeah, I remember being in Florida and he had a dog. I'm trying to remember all the scenario, but he had a dog and there was a lot of alligators in the swamps by where we were, and I guess his dog got ate, whatever, and he just was very stoic about nobody's seen Old Blue or whatever his name is today, and I don't know, he may not be coming back, and
that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so you left Suzuki, went to Yamaha.
Mm-hmm.
How did that transition happen?
Well, it's funny you should ask that one. So, when I was working at Suzuki, sponsorship stuff kind of was just starting to happen, and Preston Petty was building fenders and such. And my time at Suzuki, we had a lot of problems with the front fender. The worst ones were this very thin plastic that used to break in half right in front of the triple clamp. Triple clamp was really a small offset, so there wasn't a lot of material like support for the front fender, so it would break, especially when it got mud on it. So we found a fender through a lot of testing that it was a nylon fender and it would survive several races. And so, we were getting ready for a Trans Am, and Suzuki at that time had Roger, Garrett, Gaston Rayer, Watanabe. There was like 10 guys that were racing for Suzuki in the Trans Am. And I was at the supervisor, I think, in there. We had to get all these tires and wheels and pipes ready for this big 10-race Trans Am series. And
that's an all-star cast.
Yeah, it's like crazy and cool. And Tony had gone to a trade show like right before the first race in Mid-Ohio, I think it was, and comes back with this Preston Petty fender and says, here, put this on the bike. And now imagine I've just worked my butt off getting all this stuff ready for this series, drove in this caravan of people from LA to Ohio. And right when I get there, he's going to put this thing on. I'm like, I don't think so. I go, we haven't tested this. What if it breaks? He goes, well, they're going to pay me $10,000 to use it. I go, well, so what? What if it breaks in half? That's all my time and everybody's time just wasted. And I said, he wasn't going to back down. Neither was I. And I said, well, here's the deal. If you want to use it, you put it on. And if it breaks, you can change it in between the motos. And it just so happens this was like this gnarly mud race. First moto, 13th place, fenders broken in half. I don't have a pressure washer. We're just scraping mud off. So he put the fender on. The next, I think we pre-drilled them for him or whatever. But 2 fenders broke in half, that day. Just total terrible results. It's like, what if it's the spark plug or the wheel or whatever next? Why don't you just take care of the riding and I'll worry about the bike, And at Suzuki, at the end of the series, we were kind of at odds. And I went into this guy named Shignoni. He was the main guy at the Suzuki saying, hey, I need you to support me here, And he said, well, we have to support Tony. And I'm like, okay, I have a job offer from Yamaha. And he goes, no, you don't. And I go, yeah, I do. And it's for a lot more money than you're paying me. I don't want to go, but if I don't have your support, then I'm going to do it. And he didn't want to do that, which I understand. As a manager guy, I get the rider, it all has to work. But in this case, it made it much easier for me. I left and got more money, and I wasn't 100% sure I was working with Bob, but I had an idea, and then it all just took off from there.
Wow. Turned out to be probably a great
5 more championships. Yeah, it was awesome. We had a great relationship on and off the track. We're just still remain good friends. And, I met my wife at Yamaha and stuff, and we are like this little team. She was washing this stuff and taking care of his boots and everything.
So tell me about when you went to Yamaha, how long before you found out you were going to be working for him?
I think I knew right away. Yeah.
Well, would you remember the day you met him? Or did you
I met him at Suzuki. He rode for Suzuki in their privateer thing and did the local races. Okay. So we knew each other, and he'd come in to the race shop, which was right next to the shop at Santa Fe Springs, and he was getting his stuff out. And we talked, but I really didn't know him. We always knew there's fast guys, but are they in good enough shape to be able to last in national? At that time, they were 40 plus 2 laps, 40 minutes plus 2. Not for the faint of heart in St. Petersburg, Florida, or New Orleans or whatever. But
so he hadn't won a championship prior to that. He
won. So he was at Yamaha in 1976, and a guy named Bill Pushka was working on his bike, and he won the 125 championship that year.
Okay.
Right. So he beat Marty and was pretty good. Now, I don't know what happened to Bill. What the problem was? There was some problem, and anyway. He was getting a new mechanic, and he gave them a few names. I was one of them, and I ended up taking the job. So it worked out.
So take me through that preseason, your guys' initial sort of learning each other.
Yeah. Well, the first series was the Florida Winter Series, and, we really hadn't done a whole lot up to that point. And I'm just trying to remember which bike we actually used. I don't think we had the works bike stuff at that time. It came a little later, but, I drove back there, same scenario. We have a garage we would rent as the base. All 5 races were in Florida, and they're traveling around, and he showed up, and, he was active. We were always playing, like basketball, or we wrestle a lot. And, I'm trying to remember when Bevo and John Savitsky came into our world, maybe we met down there and we became really good friends. So, John and Bob would hang out, and me and Bevo would work together. And
Savitsky rode for Suzuki, if I remember.
Yeah, but then he changed to Yamahas too. I think Bob helped him out and stuff, and Bevo came to work at Yamaha, and, it just turned out to be, we were all great friends, but we would have these battles, like just crazy wrestling, thrashing each other. And, we did some crazy things during our time, for sure.
And so I like to ask this question to people, and I get different answers, but was Bob always the persona and the person that you'd see on camera, where he's brash and loudmouthed and funny and very cocky? Or was that a show?
I think from the competition standpoint, that's clearly who he was, and I think the reason he was that way is it put pressure on him, like he was appalled by guys getting paid a lot of money and delivering nothing. Like he couldn't he was that guy that couldn't live with himself if he took your money and didn't give you your money's worth.
Right.
And so, where he came from when he was on his own when he got into the motorcycling thing, living in a trailer in Lancaster, Palmdale, under an avocado tree, eating avocados and peanut butter, working at a welding shop. I don't remember which one it was, but that's what he did. And when he got this ride, he was getting paid $1,000 a month or whatever. And at that time, that was a lot of money. And he's thinking, I got to take advantage of this. So he put everything he had into that. Plus, he was just a really talented guy, but really more talented. He was one of the hardest working guys. After he went through getting his butt whipped from the heat exhaustion and not being in shape, he vowed that would never happen again, and it probably never did. I mean, he ran and worked and rode, and his training schedule was not for the faint of heart, and he thrashed bikes. I mean, I was practice bike mechanic. We didn't have 2 or 3 guys supporting one guy. We had one guy, and so it was a lot of work, but it was worth every second of it because we both wanted results and we got them,
I think that's something that gets overlooked by kids who just come into the sport today, is that now you have an engine guy, there's a suspension guy, a guy that drives the truck, a guy that makes you sandwiches. I mean, literally, there's a guy for everything.
Right.
But back, even all the way through to the mid-90s, if you were the mechanic, you drove the box van, you broke that thing down to the frame every week, you were the guy. I mean, there was someone that helped you set up suspension likely, and they developed the engines, but you were the guy putting the new piston in, putting the clutch. You did it all.
Yeah.
So a lot of work for you guys.
Yeah,
and when you have a guy like Bob Anna who demands, excellence, that's a lot of pressure on you.
I used to get criticized because when we came to the races, the bikes weren't super clean. And the reason for that, I tell this story, like at Anaheim, I live in the city of Orange, just right down the road. And if you take Chapman Avenue east from Anaheim Stadium, essentially, there are some hills right there now are filled with homes. In that time, in the 70s, there were no homes. We would go there Saturday morning before the race and ride, and he'd loosen up. He might even run over there and get on the bike and ride around. And we had drum brakes at those time, and when they needed to be bedded in, right? You can do your best to put chalk and get them round, but the hubs would twist a little bit depending on the spoke tightness and stuff. So once you had everything seated and bedded, so right from practice, the guy could go. He liked that feeling. So he didn't really want me getting water and, whatever other things that would start to change all that. So, we would towel it off as best we could and knock the big stuff off. But we would go through tech with a dirty bike, and he would go out there and be up to speed right away. That's just was our deal. And we used to, the terminology we used after we was done riding, shrink wrap it. Like, don't touch it. Just take it there. I don't care what it looks like. I want it just like this. Okay.
Wow.
So, and everybody, I just say, I mean, I get what you're saying, but it's not going to change what you're doing. You're going to make the result.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think I've heard you say that before in fact, when we were chatting earlier, it's focus on the things that are going to affect the result first.
Right.
And then all the other BS.
Right.
Like,
falls in place.
Yeah. That's crazy. So Saturday morning
numerous times. I mean, everywhere we could, we would do that. Especially if he was a little nervous. I mean, that's the other thing. The mechanic is kind of the psychiatrist too,
Yeah.
I mean, every athlete's insecure. I don't care who you are or when it is. You go out there, you're a little nervous, and you need somebody to kind of be that little pep talk guy as you remember all the things you've done together or whatever it is that triggers your guy. And, we had that relationship, and I think I brought that to him, especially I remember a race, this was a funny one in Omaha, Nebraska. We did some crazy stuff to the bike. We melded a production bike and an OW and tried to take the best attributes of both bikes and make one. And we went to this race in Omaha, Nebraska, Herman, Nebraska. And we're racing. Burgett was in our class, and him and Bob had these big sweeping turns that just 2 ruts came into one. And Bob and Burgett got into it a couple of times, and Rick Burgett was a pretty gnarly boy, right? And I somewhere on the shop where I couldn't see, they came together, and Bob punted Rick off the track, and he got back to the truck there, and he goes, "Oh boy!" And he goes, "I think Rick might be a little upset." And I go, "Well, just leave your helmet on, shut up, and sit in that chair right there, and I'll take care of it." And it's like now I'm the bodyguard. Not only all these other things, but he just sat in the chair with his helmet on in case Burgett was going to get out of hand. But but it all was cool, like, yeah, but it's just those little things. And so to know that somebody's going to be behind you or, in front of you to support you or whatever, that's the bond that you got to have with your guy.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that. I've actually got a question about that because there is such a dynamic between rider and mechanic, especially back then. I feel like now there's a little bit of a disconnect, like I said, because there's so many personnel. But I wanted to ask, so that habit you guys had of riding that Saturday, I remember I thought it was really interesting that Jeff Emmig used to go out on Saturdays with Butler.
Well, he probably heard this story. They probably heard this story because they were after Bob's
Sure.
time.
I wondered if so did that have an effect? Because Jeff's just
I can't remember. I mean, Steve Butler was a joy to work with and stuff, and so was Jeff. I mean, we all wanted it. We had a great group of guys: Bob Oliver, John Rosensteel, Steve, myself. Again, I don't know who else was in there. Ron Even may have been there at that time too, but just a group of guys that all wanted the same team or were willing to work their butts off.
Yeah.
And so, that doesn't surprise me going out there and just getting the jetting right, especially on the 125. If I'm not mistaken, we were making the needles by hand. Mm-hmm. And so to get them just right for the humidity, we used air density gauges, just to really tune them properly. And, we didn't have electronics and fuel injection and all that stuff. So it's quite a bit of legwork and changing things. So, that was what Saturday would be for,
Yeah, and like you said, especially on the 125, but even the 250, jetting was everything.
Yeah, right.
And you'd be, especially back east, the humidity's changing, the clouds would come in.
Right.
It was really a job for those mechanics to keep the bike sharp,
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm surprised more people didn't do that. And in fact, I
think some did. I think it's just not something that people talk about. But I mean, and later we started doing it. We tried to go to the national tracks and get a little ride on Saturday at the track. But, again, comes into that fashion thing. Like, you got to rip the bike apart, wash it all. And, I don't know.
So going back to Bob, I just can't get enough of Bob Hanna's stories. I mean, he's such a character. Did you guys ever butt heads over anything?
Yes. Very, very few times. But I remember, so we used to wrestle, like I said, a lot. And I hate to say it, but, we used to take towels from the Holiday Inns and stuff to use on Saturdays and stuff, the small little hand towels. So my little stash was like my stash, and I said, hey, if you need your own, go get your own, but don't take these because you're in the Bosch fan. This is all you got. Yeah. And I used to, we would wrestle, and I remember that we had this thing. I used to do this thing like how you resuscitate.
Sternal rate.
Yeah, one of those. And I had it where it was just like a raw spot there. And if I really got it good, it would bleed because it was just a scab. And so we would roughhouse to that extreme, where we're just making each other bleed and everything. And he'd get pissed because he'd have his HRP white T-shirts on. And if I got him down and did that, blood got on the T-shirt track. So he'd be really, really mad at me about that. So,
that's cool.
We just, again, there was nothing off limits, I guess, for that, when we were roughhouse.
Did you guys ever get into trouble? Any rental car stories or trouble with the law, that kind of stuff? Nothing
that we ever really had to pay for, but, there was a lot of rental car stuff, I mean, Bob was, the stories about him, some were very true. He got sick, I think, the year before I was working for him, and in San Antonio, got food poisoning at some restaurant, and he got so mad he climbed up on the roof, and there was a big steel plate over the blower or whatever, the exhaust and the thing, and he rolled that plate over the top, so the smoke just went inside and emptied the place out,
Of the place that he got sick in?
He got sick in, so just, he didn't want to give him an opportunity to repay something,
Yeah.
Because he was very, very revengeful. So there was a story, Scott USA used to, whenever he'd win a championship, they would give you a week ski trip in Sun Valley and get you some elk skin jacket or hat, whatever you wanted, gloves, whatever you get. So we went on one of our ski trips there, and he was messing around with me. I don't even remember what he did, but something was pissing me off. And I'm like, I'm going to just duct tape your ass together and throw you out in the snow. And so I'm wrestling him, and I was bigger than him, big enough to be able to do something. And he got really pissed. So what he was trying to do is, we were in a loft type thing with the bedroom upstairs. I'm sitting down there watching TV, and he's up on that loft. He made a noose And I can't tell you all the stuff he did to make this news. He was going to like noose me and tie me up to that pole and then come down there and beat the heck out of me, which he had done before a couple of times, rip shots. He'd come off after a long day of driving and we're just tired of one another when we were driving together. We'd be at a Holiday Inn. He said, I bet you can't climb to the second story with just your fingertips in the bricks. And I'm like, I can do that. And just when you put your hands up there and go like this, and he dropped me just a rib shot, just knock it down, and I'm laying on the ground. He goes, I'll see you tomorrow morning, and as he's running to his room. So just, but I probably gave it to him too the same way, I got to the point where I made sure that I wasn't going to hurt him too bad before the weekend, I wanted to feel something, but we played hard, it's that simple. We had great times like that.
Oh, that's awesome. So how did it feel? You hadn't won a championship with a rider, or you won with Tony D. Did this feel any different with him?
It probably felt different because for Bob, every time he got on the bike, he could win. And that's a whole different thing than when the guy just goes 2-2 and gets an overall or whatever, 1-5, in those days, like big gaps, you could still get overalls. Not that Tony did that, but Tony wasn't quite as dominant as
Bob was.
No rider was quite as dominant as Bob Hanna was.
He was a force.
He won like 76% of the races that he entered, when we were working together and stuff. So that changed a lot of things just on your focus. And I know I kind of regretted my career because I don't think I was real friendly with a lot of people. I mean, I was, but I wasn't. When the races were over, I was a little more docile, but man, I had that same buildup of,
focus and intensity.
Yeah, well, like insecurity too, right? Oh. Like, you're thinking, did I get this, did I get that? So, but yeah, it was fun, no doubt, no question. I mean, a lot of great things came of it. Ingersoll Rand used to give away tools to the winners at nationals, and just a lot of things went on, different promotions. And so, if you're the winner, you get to take part in that. If you're not, then everybody else thinks you suck.
Yeah, yeah. Well, to the victor go the spoils, they say, right?
What I would say to you, we could talk for days on things that we did, just different experiences. But what I would say is, you led this question by, was Bob that persona that he seemed to be? For everything that you saw, the gruffness, he had a soft part in his heart as well, too. Okay. Super giving, really cherished his friendships with people outside of racing. Probably one of the nicest guys at that time in my life that you would meet. That was kind to other people, that he didn't have to compete against. If you had to compete against you, don't ask for kindness, because you're going to get the real raw Bob Hanna. But if you, are just out, whatever, he's the guy that's going to pick up the tab. He's going to feel, he always felt like he had to do all these things, but super good guy. Super good.
Well, I think it speaks volumes that he's still really good friends with people that he worked with, like yourself, like Eddie Cole. Yeah. Because a guy like him, he could disappear off into the woods, Idaho, and he doesn't have to do that, right? I think that speaks about who he is. So to that point, he's got a soft center, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we've been trying to get him on the show. He said he'd come if I'd buy his airplane fuel. So we're working on it.
There you go. Well, you always go to where he is. I think that'd be more impressive. His place in Idaho is pretty awesome.
Is it Eagle or something up there?
Caldwell's where it's at. But he's got a really nice house, modest house, but nice, and pool and runway and his hangar and all of his toys and office and everything. And just to see, here's what he put together,
Yeah.
So he's done good.
I'm anxious to have him on just to talk about I think he had a lot of foresight, setting himself up financially for the rest of his life way early on, before guys were even thinking about that, and actually we ought to give a little shout out. I hope he's doing okay. He was in a bicycle accident. I don't know if you've heard about that. Tried to jump a pothole on his road bike, and
well, that delayed our trip. We were going this month, actually. We'd be there now, but he got hurt, so we pushed it out to July. But he's doing well.
I think he'll be okay, but I guess it was pretty ugly. So any of those titles with him, is there one that stood out for you? that just
The ones that stand out are the ones that we should have won that we didn't win.
Is that right?
Stand out. I mean, I think he would have won a 500 title. You know, I know he would have won it. I think Marty won it, but he should have won it. And probably I said a 500, the 500 title, and probably the 125 title probably should have been his too. You know,
that Marty won, or
maybe one Brock won.
Okay.
So, you know, again, those are the things as a mechanic. Yes, of course, the wins are awesome. You know, I don't remember all of them. I don't know that one, you know, probably one that really stands out that was a big one was Bob winning at Daytona when he had the flu and was thrown up right before, and it's like that was a turning point for him. The fact that he won at his lowest point reinforced that these guys don't have a chance when he's his normal self. And that's kind of the thing, is they always knew they were racing for second, not for first. So, you know, you go out with that kind of confidence, it's probably a really good thing.
Well, I remember him saying something, you know, like he'd make comments on TV, you know, hey, Bob, what do you think your chances are today? And he goes, well, if those guys, you know, the only way I'm not going to win is if they let the air out of my tires or something like, I mean, he would just claim it.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard anybody do.
Steve Weiss used to get pissed at him. Hannah, it's okay if you beat us, but you can't humiliate us. You know?
Well, that's what made him such a fan favorite, though. Is, he was just so outrageous with the stuff he'd say, and then he'd back it up.
Yeah, right.
You know, I always thought, man, if he's saying that, look out.
Yeah.
Because when he was also off, he'd go, you know, he'd call out on.
Yeah. He never made an excuse for losing.
Yeah.
He lost. He said he lost, and they were better than him today, or whatever. You know, it was a mechanical problem, whatever. He didn't make an excuse for it. So that was pretty cool too.
I'm trying to remember. Was it '77 the 125 championship where Glover and Laporte and Bob were battling?
Yeah.
And at the opening round, you guys, if I'm messing this up, tell me. But I think Brock told us you guys had a water-cooled bike that was actually quite good, but the claiming rule pushed you guys to take that component out of it.
Yeah.
But the cases were still the same, and they got hot, and something fell out. Anyway, it cost you guys some points.
Yeah, that it wasn't the engine on us; it was the chain guide. Was one of the problems. Is I welded the thing, like you said. In those days, we were everything, right? I mean, you talked about my transition to Yamaha. When I went to Yamaha, when I got my parts, they were in a box. I mean, the cones of the pipe in the box, not a pipe. And so, you know, different things that we did, we were responsible. And at that time, that year, you could race 125, 250, and 500. So Brock only rode 125. So he and his guy could focus only on that. We didn't have a team of 40 people working on everything. We had Jim Felt, Brock Glover doing 125s, none of which their stuff came to us. And so all of our testing, all of our stuff we did on our own. And the same with the 250 and or 500, you know. So me doing all of those things, I gotta say, I wasn't the best welder at the time. And certainly that day, you know, was one of those days. So you start, when you're thinking back, I can remember almost all of those bad days, you know, why and when and how, and, you know, they haunt you because you don't ever want to be that guy, you know.
Well, as a racer, we'll remember our very best days, but you also remember those days you're like, man, if I would have done this different, that was such a screw up. And I don't think any of us that are competitive let that go completely.
I think the ones that bother you the most, the ones that were in your control, not out of your control. When I worked at Suzuki and the steering stems were breaking, I mean, hey, I'm not the engineer. I didn't build that, you know, but I had to deal with it, you know, or the frame's breaking or whatever went on. And so, you know, it's just different depending on your perspective from the problem, you know.
Was that a DNF that at Hangtown that kind of
I mean, it had two of them. I don't remember that. I just know that first race cost us pretty much the championship. It wasn't a 12 race series. It was much shorter, so everyone was kind of important.
Right.
And we had some other weird problems along the way too that, you know, I think we won. I think at that time we had won more races than anybody, but we DNF'd more than them too. So, you know,
that was a hell of a championship with Laporte and Hannah and Glover.
Yeah.
Anybody ever wants to go back?
How it all comes down to that one race.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Again, a learning experience for me because as the mechanic and having a team manager that wasn't very prepared or didn't have a very good understanding on what his team was capable of and his riders, there was no preparation as to what might happen and what we should do. And consequently, we came out with the most photographed or most printed sign in the world, and that never should have happened like that. He should have been able to say up front,
Sure.
So that was a learning moment for me. Like,
Yeah, that was your
if I would
right?
ever do that, it was mine. And if I ever had to do that, we're not going to embarrass the hell out of everybody, by being stupid.
Yeah, and I guess I should ask your thoughts on that. I mean, we did cover it pretty extensively on Laporte's show, but that is the infamous let Brock by pit board that he needed to let Brock by so that Brock could win because Bob wasn't in contention, and it was either that happened or Laporte wins the title. What was your take? I mean, you kind of just mentioned it.
Well, it was disappointing. I mean, like I said, it all.
Did you get an order to give that, or how did that go?
Yeah.
And who was the team manager that year?
Kenny Clark.
Oh, Kenny Clark. Okay. And did he give you those exact words, or how did that go down?
No, he just, it was like, I don't know. I don't remember what he said. I mean, I'm sure it was a blur just because I was probably pissed, And
I heard after the race, Bob rode off into the woods and disappeared for like an hour and was distraught, I guess is the way to say it.
Yeah. Sure. It's not what he wanted to do.
And that's antithetical to everything that he believes in, right? I'm sure that was the hardest thing he's ever had to do.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I remember there's a picture of Bob on a podium. Maybe it's Unadilla, but I could be wrong with the venue, but he's got a trophy girl up in his arms. These are the days they were grab assing and kissing the girls. I mean, it was a different era.
You're right.
You'd be canceled immediately today if you did any of that, but it's so...
He still tries to get away with it.
That doesn't surprise me. But,
no.
Is there any podium antics or like stuff like that sticks out for you?
Well, I mean, the things that you mentioned, there were so many of them. It was hard to, afterwards they'd come by our truck and wanting to sign body parts and things. And, it was like, it wasn't abnormal, but it wasn't, not every truck did that either.
Sure.
So it was kind of, it was just Bob. It's who he was, he got something on your rear, just so you can touch him or whatever, And it wasn't just trophy people. I mean, my wife, when we were dating and everything, he's always messing around with her, whatever, nothing bad. We used to have this thing, I'll tell you this story, that when we were married and we had my daughter, his mom, her name was Christina.
Okay.
And she was always dressed to the nines, and my wife just made her always look really nice. And every time Bob was around, he was Uncle Bucky, and so he'd go, lift up your dress for Uncle Bucky, and she, on cue, she'd lift her up, and so that kind of translated into when she went to kindergarten and all that. It was in the era where these preschools that were child molesters were coming out, so they're questioning all the kids. And so they questioned my daughter, and she says, well, my Uncle Bob asked me to lift up my dress, so next thing you know, we get a letter, and we're like embarrassed and pissed. And my wife finally had to tell him, look, Bob, if you tell her to do that, she doesn't, she's getting a spanking just to get him to stop, So I always wanted to do this thing where he was going to get subpoenaed by the school district. I had some friends that could make a very official letter, but I never did it. But that, it was a prankster. He didn't mean anything by it, obviously, but man, oh man, it's crazy, funny stuff.
Well, and I mean, as a fan, I love the late 80s, mid to late 80s. I was a kid just really looking up to those riders, Bordy and O'Mara and Bailey and Hannah. But I just, when I look at the sport then versus now, there's some things that are way better, but the personalities then, because you could be like a Bob, you could...
Yeah.
And he was one of a kind, but I remember another race, and maybe it's the same one with that trophy girl. He walks her up and he didn't win. Maybe Bailey won. And he says something, they interview him, and he goes, well, Bailey can win. I got my trophy right here. He was just wild with the stuff he would do and say. And I don't know if he was joking or not. Maybe he wasn't, but anyway, he was hilarious. Just such a crazy guy.
He was a personality for sure, and that's what every sport needs. Every sport's got one or two or three of them,
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I believe that
that's what hooks people into a sport.
Sure.
You know, I don't know if you've been following that F1 series that's on Netflix right now. I wasn't a Formula One guy, but you watch this series and you get a look into the paddock and you get to kind of know some of these athletes, and it just draws you in. You know, when you can connect to a person and their personality and go, this guy's great, he's funny, or he's this. Yeah, that's what draws in fans.
Sure.
And I feel like we missed that as a sport. We've gotten to be very vanilla, you know, and robotic, and not to, I'm not going to put any names out there, but you know, the people that are on the podium, you're like, I know exactly what he's going to say before he even says it. And even if they are professional, it's like, man, show some emotion one way or another. Be real. Let us see who you are, because that's how you get the fans.
Fan show, like when we would go to Pontiac Stadium or any of the stadiums back east, there's 60 or 70,000 people, and they've got these hurricane flags that they've hung from the ceiling there, you know, that the fans brought. You know, just that was a big deal. And the promotions group at the time, they took advantage of it. They had him in early, go to, you know, TV places, and you know, and he was just that larger than life personality. Everybody wanted to get around, you know.
Yeah, and I sure embrace it when I see somebody. Jet Lawrence reminds me a little bit of that right now. Yeah. Not Hannah, but he's got that personality.
Yeah, right.
He's goofy and he's fun. Yeah. So anyway, I hope we see more of that. I'd love to see a little bit of that Bob Hanna come back. Tell me a little bit about your prep, the difference between back then and now, like what you would do between motos. Because now, you know, they've got a full wash station set up behind the semi, and they pressure wash it and you hook it up to a laptop. And, you know, it's like this whole thing. You said, you didn't even have pressure washers.
Yeah, I think, you know, it changed I can take you back to a brand where in between the races, you'd be welding motor mounts, you know, and pulling the engine out, weld motor mounts back, put them back, and or whatever. Just, you know, every bike took something a little bit different, but it really was addressing whatever issues that he might have, if there were some, and if not, then I think we didn't necessarily change tires all the time, so we'd be checking spokes. You know, hubs were fairly strong for the most part, depending on the track. So, you know, every time you went there, chains have been good. You know, DID's been something I've used for my whole career and live and swear by them. They're good. And so just, you know, you learn the products that you're using, and then that kind of leads you into what you got to do. Air filters are always a big deal. Hangtown or Puyallup, you know, Washington, super fine silt. So, you know, making sure you've got the thing really airtight and all that, so things are going to leak by, or changing the filter frequently, you know, just so every track had something unique, and that's the good guys had their notes on what to watch for and what problems they had, you know. I remember Unadillas, lots of rocks, and we had this little bracket on our fourth leg, two years in a row. One time the bracket on the cable got broke off of the backing plate where, you know, the cable screws down in and adjusts. That whole lug got broke off, and next time it was the lug at the top on the fourth leg. You know, impossible to think.
What are the odds?
Yeah, right. But both of them, then lose your front braking unit and pretty much lost the race. You know? So, I mean, just so trying to look back and see what came your way, or chain guides can be a problem with rocks and things getting bent, or a rock getting in it or something. So you're just constantly minimizing and looking at those things. And, you know, certainly one of the important lessons is just to stay focused. In those days, we had a lot of people that wanted to be around and talk in your ear. And I think it was a Trans Am at Atlanta where my seat came off because we had these, you know, we had a lot of problems with the seats coming off, the bolts packing up. So I had an Allen bolt, which was stronger than a nylock nut. So it really couldn't come off if you tightened it up. But if you just got the first couple threads, it did, and it could. And so that kind of stuff, you know, just from somebody taking my mind off, you know, coming to ask a question or give me this or whatever. And, you know, so there were just things that you, again, wish you could go back and fix, but you learned by them and try to figure out a way, like, how am I going to not let that happen again, you know?
And I chatted earlier too about some of the things I had heard about you, or heard about you over the years. Yamaha was the one team I never rode for during my career, so I never got to experience working with you that closely. But they said anytime there was an issue with any of the riders or any of the bikes, you would come in and go, okay, what happened? What caused it? And how do we fix this to never happen again? It was a chain. Right. Okay, well, how do we take this master link out of the equation. Let's press the chain on. Okay, let's have a spec that we press it to these. I mean, you really addressed any issue to try to minimize what could happen.
Well,
and that's
prevent. It wasn't even just, I mean, the thing happened. We want to prevent it. Then look forward. Don't wait for it to happen to have a solution, you know.
Yeah.
And that's it. That from the road race teams I put together here, or from the motocross scene, and a lot of people hated it because I said, listen, I'm pissed if you leave the racetrack without knowing what happened. That engine's broken, then pull it apart. We need to know and figure out what we're going to do before we leave, because the next race is in 7 days. We don't have a lot of time sometimes, you know. So I know they didn't like my tone, but I didn't like the embarrassment of that happening, not just to me or the team, but for the rider.
Yeah.
In Christ, you throw everybody's, you know, hard work away for something silly like that, you know. So, I mean, again, it's just the leadership, and some people really took it and wanted it and understood it, and then they used it. I've had guys that didn't like my approach, and then you come back and go, now I know why you did all the things you did. When I'm in charge, now it matters, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm glad it resonates that way with people, but I don't feel bad for any of it. I'm quite happy that I was smart enough to try to do it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
What about mud races in those days? Like, if you had just a swampy race,
yeah. Well,
you can't clean them. You're scraping it the best you can.
Again, when you go back to an air-cooled engine, that's one mud setup. You know, we used to make these big flaps out of the inner tubes at that time when we had them, and they covered the top of the head, so it just can't take with mud. The air can still go through the fins and cool it. But in the water-cooled things, you know, you gotta protect the radiators whatever way you can. And there's numerous products out there that people have done with foam and or
netting
solutions, or the little stockings that go over them, you know, or for a flat track, they use stuff on the screen so it vibrates the mud off, you know, it rattles a little bit, you know. So it's like we've done all of those things, and you're going to use the one that was most effective for that type of dirt, you know. Back east, it's very heavy, sticky mud. Out west, it's very loose and kind of,
splashy,
you know, watery or whatever. So you just got to roll with it. But I remember when you talk about that, you know, Dave Osterman was one of our mechanics for Mike Bell and went on to be a team manager and stuff. And he used to come to us and say, I don't understand how you guys can be so calm at a mud race like this, you know, because you just kind of know what to do. You know, we would use, Yamaha makes this really great waterproof grease. It's like just super stringy for their outboard things. And, you know, you pull your throttle apart and all the seams that, you know, they don't necessarily overlap. Well, you put grease all in there so nothing could penetrate it, you know, not sand or water, or, you know, just all of the things that eventually came about where the end of the throttle tube was sealed. So the water just can't come from the grip, or, you know, so all these things evolved over problems arising, and that's what we would do, you know, putting hand guards on if the rider was okay with them, or grease, or putting grease on the air filter in areas where you knew water was going to hit it. So now it can't penetrate there. It still has enough foam to breathe somewhere else, you know. So, I mean, I've forgotten all of these things that we did, but they were, we would talk about them, and everybody just would get in line and get it done. You know?
It's interesting. It's in the fire service, we have a very similar thing. It's called the standing fire orders. And it's just things on a vegetation fire that you do or don't do, and there's no deviating from these.
Right.
And they all came to be from a line of duty death, somebody who died because of this.
Right.
And so it's different, but the same. Something breaks because this happened. Okay, well then we do this.
Right.
Period. Like, this is the new rule when we have these situations, these conditions.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. And then how do you ensure that continues? You know, like when you retire, I mean, is there anything you pass down to new guys, or is that just stuff you share while you're there?
I think it's just different styles of management. You know how some people don't want to be as hands-on. I think they always, I remember being at the road races, you know, so my history, just so we go back, when I was at Suzuki, there wasn't a whole lot of races going on, motocross and supercross. So I filled in and went to road races. Gary Nixon was one of the riders Suzuki had, and Irv Kanemoto, super famous tuner, was his guy. And so I used to go to the road races when there was no motocross and work with him and be his little puppet guy, you know, just because I wanted to be that sponge. I was single and I just loved racing and all that, and I was gaining all this knowledge. And So when Yamaha had the road racing and I got in charge of it, I kind of drew a little bit back on that and used some of the thought processes on, we've got this bike. Our original bike when I went in there was 35 pounds over the weight limit. When I left, we were under the weight limit. So we won 9 championships in 10 years. They're still winning with the same basic premise and things that we did. And it was just, things for me that are common sense, but that's, when somebody's good at what they do, it looks easy to everybody else, right? But when they got to think of it, they can't put it all together. So I never tried to force anybody. I wanted to teach them, but with the results. And that's how they all fall in line, is when you start winning, everything changes. Now they got to listen to you. Yeah. But if you're losing, and just it's like cancer inside a team. And I always live by that, when the road race team's winning, it sucks the other guys along in the shop that want to do good and all that. So it makes your job a lot easier,
In that regard, did you ever have a season or a stretch of years where the wins weren't coming? What was the toughest kind of stretch?
I think we had a disparity that our support teams, meaning like the L&Ms and whoever, were doing better than the factory team was, and there's a big difference between the factory side and the private side. Private side is a lot. We always used to, first of all, say racing has to have a very short snake. When the head moves, the tail moves right along, right? But a really long snake, meaning bureaucracy, the head moves and it takes a long time for the tail to catch up. So the private teams are much shorter snakes than the factory teams. We got to talk to our company and across the globe or whatever, or we within our own big company, where these private guys, they can make decisions on personnel and direction and, purchasing things. So those influence everything downstream of them, So we did go through this spell for a lot of reasons. People really weren't doing their job the way it needed to get done, and we couldn't do a whole lot about it because of this big process, and
which is got to be so frustrating, because
it just destroys you, and you're just, then you get a little bit crazy and, verbal and trying to make people understand, like, this is on you, kind of, but some people want to accept it and others don't, So yeah, we did go through some times, and again, they're all, you just got to keep believing in yourself. And for me, especially the guy at the top, where I've got one side over here that's just remarkable how the people are working together and things are getting done, and you're just able to, it's so seamless and easy. And this other side that, taking a bike out of a truck is a struggle, or getting everything at the track that we need, it just was night and day. And so, it kept me up a lot. That was the other part about retiring, when people say, I don't wake up at 2 a.m. with this thought going through my head on what I got to deal with, So now it's somebody else's issue.
The snake analogy is actually pretty interesting. And I wonder if, when you look at the rapid ascension of KTM as a group, because they are a much smaller organization than a Yamaha, than a Honda, they were able to make those changes quickly and adapt and take advantage of some rules.
And I think the other side that, them as a company are much smaller, and they produce many fewer bikes than, say, Yamaha. So Yamaha looks at this big picture, global picture with a YZ. They've got to make these small adjustments for across the globe. In KTM's world, because it's smaller, they can make these adjustments that they need to much quicker. And they may be a little bit more racing oriented than they are production oriented, more than Yamaha. Yamaha might be a little more production oriented than racing oriented. So you get those two things happening for sure. And Roger, being the mastermind, had been through all of this. He's got great people working for him, and he's only worrying about one thing, motocross, right? He's not worrying about Supermoto and road racing and side-by-sides and whatever else they can throw at you. They've done a fantastic job organizing and, with the look and the consistency, and, it's frustrating, but it's understandable completely.
Yeah. I love the snake analogy, because I think it's absolutely right. So when you did 77, 78, 79 with Bob, or 77?
All the way through 81, from 77 to 81. I think at the time we were like the longest duo out there, from those years.
Okay.
So 81 was when you got hurt, or 80. I think 81 was our last year. And the one race we won, and I'll remember this, because Yamaha was going through one of those spells you talked about when he hurt himself. The bikes, Brock and Mike were the development guys, and they were both much bigger than Bob. So the bike went okay in a straight line, but didn't corner with beans, because they all wanted this real tall bike, and it never settled in the corner. And all of our stuff, we always focused on the lowest bike we could have to manage, bottoming and things like that. And it would just turn on the dime and give you 9 cents change. That's what we wanted. And you needed to be a little stronger upper body strength, because those bikes tend to want to knife a little bit more. So today, most guys are, it's just, it's whatever. There's some reasoning instead of them getting strong enough to manage it, to do that. So if you watch Cooper Webb, that's one thing. Those guys, he can go inside everybody anytime he wants and still accelerate. So, I'm sure Roger had something to do with that, reminding those guys, you got to use the whole track, not just the line,
Well, and that goes back to even Dungey. If you, in his KTM heyday, he would turn inside of everybody and carry the same speed. And you're like, wow.
Yeah.
So
it just, but the last race was in 1981 at Saddleback on my wife and I's anniversary, April 5th.
Oh, wow.
So a friend of mine, I had one of those, because his mom was a baby. We had this VHS, 2-piece big camera and a box, and they went around and recorded the stuff that Pipeline Digital put from the Massacre at Saddleback. That was my tape. All that footage was from our camera stuff.
You still have all that?
I think I probably have a copy of that. I don't know if I still have I think I gave the tape to him to use, but I don't know. I don't know if I do or not. Jimmy tried to get it on DVD, but
oh wow, that's cool footage.
It was a great day with who was the announcer in the background? Who was his name? It wasn't Larry, but it was somebody who was really good, and he had to use all the little trick phrases.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Oh, who was there? Larry Huffman and
I keep wanting to say who's part of this. I'll think of it.
Anyway, okay. So you were with him when he broke his leg?
Yes.
During that? That was 80?
I think it was 1980.
Okay.
It might have been the end of 79, turned into like a 13 or 14 month injury because he got infected. So I think we won. I'm trying to think if he heard it before the motocross season, because I think we won the motocross in 8 and 9 and the supercross 77, 78, 79. So it must have been in the first part of at the end of the 79 season. Yeah.
And was that tough for you? I mean, what were you doing there the whole time?
Well, actually, I was helping Mike Belt. If Mike were here today, he would tell you that, we were out testing a 395, just me and him driving home in the box van. And I told him, I said, do you really want to win this Supercross championship? And he said, yeah. I go, then you need to not take a vacation here. You need to, from right today, work on this thing till we get there. And, you got to be ready at the first race. You just can't wait till January to start working here, And he took it to heart, and he told me, he goes, that conversation changed my whole life. So I was kind of in the background, all these guys kind of helping and everything. But, we had a lot of talented guys. Yamaha's never been, sacrificed the talent, but sometimes the heart is where they need a little bit bigger push.
Right. Well, or a guy they respect who has the success to say, hey, you're missing the mark right here.
Yeah, I never, at the time, you don't feel that way. Today, I understand the importance of it, but then I just felt like I was being the guy I should be,
Yeah. That's really interesting. God, I breaks my heart thinking about it.
Yeah.
So when you came off the road with Bob, what role did you transition into?
I was kind of like the supervisor. I was doing suspension stuff, going to San Jose. We were flirting around with some other stuff, but I know Yamaha brought this engineer named Stephen Doy, and he later became a VP at Yamaha. But at that time, they told him, you go to the United States and you don't leave until that bike's winning again, because we actually had an OW program. And but the bike was very heavy. The chassis was messed up, just didn't really handle well. And that was our whole existence, was trying to we were making all these new frames trying to get something that he could ride. And that whole thing at Saddleback where Bob rammed Howerton and, that he won, we ended up winning, but that was a fiasco. And really, we probably shouldn't have won. Like, Bob won that race on heart and determination, not because we fixed every problem that bike had,
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the fastest bike, but it was the heaviest bike, and
it wasn't fast, but it sure handled like.
Yeah. And it was okay handling, but it wasn't what it needed to be. It wasn't what, he was racing against. Those things were light, they handled, and when you add that, they accelerate good and all kinds of good things. Sure. So, but, he won. And then that guy ended up getting to go home. And we were working like in my garage. I mean, he'd be over there drinking whiskey. Come on, now. What are we going to do, Keith? And like, we got to line this pig up. That's what we're doing.
And what were you guys doing back in those times to lighten it up? I mean,
drilling holes. Stuff, finding different materials.
Was there carbon fiber back then?
There was, but, it wasn't as prevalent as what's there now. And, we were, using more aluminum than steel where we could. They had some pretty cool steels that they could really make very thin wall. Back then, Japan had a line on. So we did a lot that we could, but just the basic design seemed like at the time Yamaha wanted 4 nuts and bolts where everybody else could do it with 2, or just in the design of the parts was just tough,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there were some good things. Like, I remember when I came from Suzuki, the transmissions they looked like baby pieces, but they were very strong. Okay. And Yamahas were these giant gears and things. And, I'm sure that the material probably wasn't quite as good. So it had to be bigger to be as strong. So there's a lot of little things like that going on. But, eventually they're getting it or got it. And they, they can do a better job. But it was tough. I don't know that we ever resolved everything.
Did titanium and magnesium, was there those kind of nuts and bolts parts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, they're not the answer. They're just they're
part of it.
They're part of the problem, part of the solution.
Yeah.
But pretty small.
How would you say, let's say late 70s, early 80s, even 90s, the involvement between Japan and the U.S. Versus today? Is there the same sort of back and forth and communication and sharing of information and support?
Yeah, I think for Yamaha, it started really good when we had full works equipment. In the U.S. and most everybody went to production rules. The racing departments kind of went away in the state that they were.
In Japan?
In Japan.
Okay.
And they stayed there for road racing. Road racing's always had that kind of luxury, big groups. And then slowly the production team started getting involved with the racing more because that's what was going to sell bikes. They could use the racing wins a direct, sales support for selling a production bike because it was a production bike. So from everything from the look and the way it worked and everything. So Yamaha, got pretty good, but now it's probably ramped up a little bit more. People want to win and, the racing groups are a little bit stronger than what they were then. And these things change, kind of like the political climate. One guy gets our president, our taxes go down, new guy comes in and they go up. Same thing happens at these companies. Something that's very racing oriented, things unlock and more good things happen. And then another guy comes in and he reduces the budgets and, it's just, you just don't know. So it's an ebb and flow of support.
And is that just the president in Japan at the time or wherever, if he's a fan of racing or not, or is it sales related, net profit related?
Yeah, I think it's lower than just the top guys in Japan. I mean, they definitely say the final yes or no, but it's all of the subsidiaries that are responsible. They get to decide the direction,
It's a big snake, like you said.
It's a big snake, exactly. Yeah. And but when they make the decision, it takes a while for it to be implemented.
Right.
Too,
It's just interesting, like over the years, I'll use Honda as an example. In the 80s, you could tell they just were really passionate about racing.
They put a massive amount of money into it. They committed to 10 years, and the budget was funded for that period of time. They got the best people they could get at the time, and they did a remarkable job.
But then you see when the next guy comes in or that same philosophy isn't carried on for the next decade, and you see the results, you see the bike performance, you see all of it go down. And I just find that very interesting that there isn't a...
Well, it's tied to, I think it's kind of tied to the sales, right? So racing is a function of marketing these days. So if sales are off, then budgets are off. And you take percentages of total sales into the marketing and then how the marketing, what part goes to racing, then that's kind of why you see the constant movement, you know?
Okay.
There needed, back then, there was more of a commitment from a shared expense from Japan, I'm guessing from Honda and their U.S. sales group, and they could flatten that little cycle a little bit, and so they knew what they were doing. But you have to do that, you know. Either salaries are big, you make a big commitment. You know, Ken Roxon's salary, you know, it's huge, right? 5 years, a couple $1 million a year, there's $10 million you're looking at, you know.
Well, it's another question I'd love to know is, you know, take any race team. You're paying these athletes so much money. It's which they deserve. I'm not saying they don't deserve it. You've got all the expenses of taking all these guys to the races. It's a massive amount of money in a budget. How many bikes do you need to sell? And that's just U.S. racing, right? Like there's
a global situation, right?
So how many motorcycles do you got to sell to not just to get even?
Yeah.
Never mind profits. I can't personally believe that with just motocross models, you're making that up.
Yeah, you're not.
So do they just write that off as marketing expense?
Well, they would spread it out. You could spread these things out. That's why they have a lot of product lines. And, you know, we have ATVs supported, you know, our racing efforts for a lot because motorcycle was down. But that's kind of how these businesses that have multiple profit centers, they can all help one another. Everybody's going to have a downtime, right?
Sure.
So they try to flatten that out with, hey, this year you're the big guy, so you're going to put a little bit more over here. But when it's motorcycles time, they're going to pay you back. They're going to do this. So it just kind of moves around, you know. But yeah, it's when you think about how big is the budget, really, could they really sell enough bikes? Not really.
No way.
So, you know, but again, what moves the needle? What makes Yamaha's brand what it is? If you close your eyes and say Yamaha, what do you think about? You know, you might think about a wave runner, but you probably don't. You know, you probably don't think about a jet boat, but maybe you do. Think about a blue bike now or whatever, you know, whatever era you came to. For some people, it's yellow and black, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that would be an interesting question for folks on the street.
Yeah.
You know, close your eyes. Yamaha, what do you see? Because for us, obviously, it's all their bikes. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. So do you think it's actually true you'd be a guy who's seen numbers that what wins on Sunday sells on Monday?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that right?
So I'll give you an example. So when I got into the road racing or took over the road racing, Yamaha sold an R1. It never won the shootout. It was 4th or 5th on the sales list for all 1,000cc sport bikes. We started winning within 2 or 3 years. That bike won shootouts, was the best-selling 1,000cc sport bike. And the only thing that changed was our winning races. So I know it works.
Wow.
Kind of depends on, you know, how well it works. Well, if you take the best-selling bike, motocross bike, and start winning, does it make it sell twice as many? No. Did it help Kawasaki when Ricky or James or any of those guys, they didn't get the bump. They were still number 3 or 4 in overall sales from anybody. Yeah. So it's not, you kind of, you know, there's a right place to pull the trigger and wrong, but there's other things that you can do to really help you.
Sure.
Know? So I know it works, but again.
But there are exceptions. I mean, I look at Suzuki there was a run when Ricky was there. Ricky, then Reed, then Dungey.
Yeah.
They won everything.
Yeah.
They won a lot.
But like I said, you can't even, you know, that snake, you just can't turn it all around.
Right.
You know, number one, I mean, Yamaha, the other thing is like the brand, the bigger that brand, like Yamaha is a huge international name, not just for motorsports, but musical things as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
watercraft,
like they're like the Honda guys or whatever. Suzuki's not that kind of company, nor is Kawasaki, or were they? They may get there, but through the 70s and 80s, they weren't that kind of company.
Sure.
So I think, you know, again, Yamaha's done a fantastic job in a lot of different things, and that's why they, you know, they're as strong as they are.
Awesome. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. I kind of got caught up in here. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more Keith McCarty.
Summer's coming. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? Manscaped is here to ensure your body is ready for the wild with their game-changing full-body grooming and hygiene products. Don't be the guy at the beach with Austin Powers chest hair if you grew some winter man tits. At least you can do is make sure they're hairless. It's time to get ready for hot guy summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code Whiskey Throttle. Manscaped is dedicated to helping you increase your confidence and level up your full-body grooming game with the Performance Package 4.0. The kit comes with the Essential Lawnmower, the 4.0 version. It's waterproof, cordless, and a ton of other liquid formulations to round out your grooming routine. So whether you're trimming your chest or the treasure chest in your pants, this is the best trimmer on the market. Their trimmer features a ceramic blade designed to cut hair on loose skin and to reduce grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin-safe technology. You can even trim an arrow pointing to the promised land if you're bold enough. Inside the Performance Package, you'll also find the Manscaped Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner, an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer because we know how painful chafing can be when you're wearing your bathing suit all day. No one likes nose hairs, so their package comes also with the Weed Whacker 2.0. You also get 2 free gifts, the Shed Travel Bag and the patented high-performance reduced chafing Manscaped boxers. These things are super comfy. I'm not even a boxer guy, and I like to sleep in them. They're great. If you're wearing sandals, you need to get the Manscaped Shears 2.0 Nail Kit. Look, we don't need a scene like, Dumb and Dumber where it's taking some type of rotary saw and a bunch of sparks flying. The Shears 2.0 Nail Kit gets you tuned up. Very easy. Having the right tools for grooming is essential, so do yourself a favor and always use the right tools for the job. So here it is. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code Whiskey Throttle at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping using our code Whiskey Throttle over at manscaped.com. Trim your chesticles with the besticles. See you at Manscaped. There's a new product on the market that's going to help you with your riding and racing, and it's Elevate Action Sports. If you've not yet gone and checked it out at elevateactionsports.com, it's a collective of riding coaches, the likes of which has never been put together. Grant Langston, Ryan Hughes, Jeff Emick, Johnny Campbell, and myself, David Pingree, bringing all of our years of experience in professional racing to one place with professionally produced videos and all kinds of supporting staff to help you with your mental side of racing, your physical side, your bike setup, your bike maintenance. We cover it all. Get to Elevate Action Sports right now and join the community.
Dunlop. There is a reason every AMA championship in the past decade was won on Dunlop tires. They are the best. Choose the best performing tire and a brand that has never wavered in their support of our sport. Choose Dunlop. Pro Circuit. Pro Circuit products are designed with one goal in mind: winning. Through passion and hard work, Pro Circuit has operated the most successful 250 team in the history of the sport. They use that same formula when developing exhaust, engine, and suspension parts for every brand. When only the highest level of performance is acceptable, trust Pro Circuit.
Since 2009, Seat Concepts has been dedicated to making the best aftermarket seats. More comfort, more grip, more riding. For 10 years, we've continued to raise the bar. Innovation and American craftsmanship make Seat Concepts the world-leading manufacturer of power sports seats.
Something from nothing. That's what Aiello Concepts is about. It starts with a spark, an idea, a concept, which leads to a design, and finishes with engineered excellence with the highest quality products created with durability in mind. All our products are made in the USA at our state-of-the-art facility in Stuart, Florida. Whether you are a weekend warrior, ride for fun, or at the highest level of competition, Aiello Concepts offers innovative titanium, aluminum, and carbon fiber parts for your dirt bike. We offer a wide variety of products that you can customize to your liking. Browse our site for foot pegs, brake tips, engine components, specialty tools, frame grip tape, lever grips, carbon fiber components, motor stands, our secondary on-switch, plus much much more. Head to NihiloConcepts.com and see for yourself why factory teams like Red Bull KTM, Rockstar Husqvarna, Troy Lee Designs Gas, Orange Brigade, Club MX, KLM Gas, and some of the fastest riders in the world choose Nihilo Concepts.
Specialized Bicycles. Specialized leads the way in the world of bicycling. Whether it's cross-country racing, downhill, e-bikes, enduro, road, gravel, dual slalom, dirt jumping, or all mountain bikes that do it all, Specialized has the perfect ride for you. The brand is synonymous with engineering excellence and innovation that steers the industry. Visit your local Specialized dealer for a test ride and see just how good Specialized products are.
I try to keep on keeping on.
With a rich history in motocross, ProX has been dedicated to supplying quality components since 1975. Whether you're rebuilding an engine or just need a new chain, ProX Racing Parts aims to bridge the gap between OE quality and affordability. ProX has over 9,000 part numbers and over 60 different product types that are manufactured by highly reputable or even OEM suppliers and are offered at affordable prices to help keep riders on the bike instead of in the garage. Visit ProX.com to search parts for your bike or check them out at your favorite online or local dealer.
Audio Jungle.
The guys are just breaking in their race bikes, which will leave on the semi this Saturday to go to the first Supercross for our coast in Orlando. So the guys are just be goofing off a little bit, do some cool photos, do some cool videos. When you go racing, you want to do well, but a big key is keeping the bikes on the track. That's why we chose to work with Motul.
Expectations coming in as a rookie is just to try and get my feet wet and honestly just send it, see where I end up and do my best out there, but just ride aggressive and ride like myself in practice and I should have a good time.
Challenges of this sport, I believe, is just simply staying healthy. With how fast we're going and what we're doing, your margin for mistake is really, really small.
Stay Sick. If you have little rippers, then you have had to have seen Stay Sick bikes by now. We have created bike and experiences that allow kids to develop sooner and empower them to find their own ride. From learning to ride to sharpening skills, the Stay Sick promise is accelerated growth. Whatever path your family chooses, it's going to be the ride of your life. Stay Sick Stability Cycles.
I'm on vacation every single day cause I love my occupation. I'm on vacation. If you don't like your life, then you should go and change it.
All right, welcome back, everybody. That was your Troy Lee Designs timeout. Get over to TroyLeeDesigns.com. Look at all of the new line of motocross gear is out, mountain bike gear, the paint department's cranking. Get over there and check out what they've got going on, and it's amazing stuff. Okay, back here to Keith. I was looking through just some of the names that Yamaha has had since you've been there, and I can't list them all. It's an astronomical list, but I mean, Mike Bell, Rick Johnson, Stanton, Emick, Bradshaw, Reed, Stewart, Burgett, Glover, Cantaloupe, Stanton, Ellis, Semix, Kehoe, Bowen, Holly, Diamond, Dubach, Jeff Ward, even at a time rode Yamahas with you guys, Kalos, Lusk, Dowd, Henry, Langston, Ramsey, Fonseca, Plessinger, Martin Webb. It's crazy how many guys you've worked directly with through the factory team, through Yamaha of Troy, through the other satellite teams. Well, I mean, wow. What do you? Does that ever just? There's just not a lot of guys that can say that.
Yeah, it's overwhelming for sure, and all of those guys are fairly close. I mean, you want the best for them. You're providing an opportunity for them to be successful and make something that will be with them for the rest of their life, and you're hoping they're taking full advantage of it. Some do, some don't, but just even if they don't, even if it doesn't, I just always felt like my job is to get the best out of them that they can give, whatever that is. You don't really know. And if we were able to do that, then you feel good. If we weren't able to do that, then you you take that a little bit harder because you just couldn't find that key to unlock them, you know. But the friendship part of it, their families and everything, you know, with every rider, there's 3 or 4 layers behind them too, and that's been great as well, you know. So, yeah, very fortunate for sure.
And yeah, and it's. I wonder if you ever at times during your career or now that you've retired, just kind of go, wow. It sort of hits you, the gravity of it, how many people you've worked with, these legends of the sport, and you've gotten to know them on a personal level. Was there ever moments where you're just like, this is crazy, like how fortunate am I, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I always think I was. I think I had the best job in the world. I tell everybody I've lived, you know, 5 lifetimes, you know.
Yeah.
And some people don't get to do 1/5 of what I've been able to do with the job and traveling and working in different disciplines. And I was going through, you know, when I left Yamaha, I got boxes of stuff that I took and some pictures. And by the way, I'll get you some scrapbook stuff. I just didn't have time to get it. But I had a pamphlet that we did for Supermoto. And it was, you know, Brandon Curry and Doug Henry and Mark Burkhardt and Rick Williams. He works for Graves Motorsports. He was like the team manager of the team at the time, and Chuck Graves. And when we were getting to go to all these things and do Supermoto, that was really a fun time for a sport that never really got to where I think it should have gotten, you know. But yeah, I just was thinking back on that, or the Baja. I was telling these guys during the break, doing the Baja 1000 on the Yamaha Banshee, you know, that what a thing that was, or the super bikers, you know.
Yeah.
And all of these things kind of pulled our racing group together to do things they never would have thought they were going to do, and we were successful at it, you know.
Yeah.
So it was one thing, the camaraderie, 2, the winning of it, and just the whole experience going, yeah, I've always felt like there's nothing we couldn't do given the time and a reasonable budget to get it done, you know. It was good. It's been fun.
Yeah, I guess I totally forgot about Supermoto, but you were very involved in that. It almost blends, you know, your 2 passions, which is road racing and motocross, into this big thing. And
it did.
I was there for a little run of that, and I love that sport.
Yeah.
It's so sad to me the way it petered out between the economy and some of the Red Bull dollars getting misused or mismanaged, or however that went. But what a cool sport for a little while. Huh?
And I always looked at it for, you know, the motocross and supercross promoters did a great job promoting and developing athletes and their names and their personalities. And Supermoto was that place where it could extend all of those already built, you know, entities into, if they wanted to do that. Maybe by that time, most of them wanted to get out, you know, especially the guys that were successful. They probably thought they had enough money, but it was pretty cool watching Doug Henry and guys like Mark Burkhardt and Troy Lee and yourself. And, you know, there was a number of people that was just fun getting out there and doing that. So,
well, the fact that you could do them anywhere, the Queen Mary event, with the one out at the Morongo Casino, you could make them really cool no matter where you were.
Yes.
And I want to let me pick your brain on this, because one of the things that I think hurt that sport, and I don't know how you'd fix this. And like I said, there was multiple avenues that hurt it all at one time. The economy probably being the worst, but I feel like when it started out, you'd get Pastrana, you'd get the Bostroms. Nicky Hayden came and rode with us at X Games one year. Every motocross guy, you name it, Reed, McGrath, Henry, they would all come. And so you have a built-in fan base, because all of those fans are going, oh man, cool, something different, but with guys I already know and love. But as the sport specialized, and you had Cassidy Anderson and you had Mark Burkhardt and Fillmore and those guys, they weren't really household names.
Right.
And then they started beating the heroes. Right. And then pretty soon those guys are going, well, I'm not going to show up and get 10th, you know, like I'm out.
Who is this guy? Right.
Yeah. And they were legitimately good. And shoot, I mean, one year at the X Games, I got a 3rd, and I beat Jeremy. I beat a lot of these guys. And I go, oh man, I can't believe I just did that. But I was focusing on that, right? And they're still racing motocross and stuff. So I think that hurt it, but I don't know how you'd ever stop that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that you can. I mean, there were certainly a lot of talented kids that just never had that opportunity. And when they were there, they beat the name brand guy, you know. Then I don't know. That for me, it was it was bad because those guys no longer wanted to come, but it was great for the sport to go, man, this is anybody's game. You don't know who's going to win, you know?
Yeah.
But they could have won too. I think it just comes down to they didn't necessarily want to work that hard, or maybe they didn't have the best stuff like they did in their own sport, you know? I mean, there's a lot of that too. But again, if you want to work hard and, you know, just and work at it, I think it was there for your taking.
Yeah. Well, it was so neat, the rivalry between like the Troy Lee Honda team and the Graves Yamaha team and Kerry Hart's team. You know, there was all these different
entities. Right?
Yeah, and we raced hard, but the thing that was the coolest to me, it reminded me of 80s motocross.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a battle, but then afterwards, you know, the
fun, right?
Everywhere eating brats back at who was the KTM guy from Wisconsin?
Oh,
I'm brain farting on his name.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember.
Just great people.
Yeah, right.
And everybody was friendly. We'd go to eat. It was like, man, this is the way motocross should be.
Right.
Still, but I think as you introduce more and more money, things get more serious.
Yes.
You lose some of that fun. But anyway, I sure love that sport. I wanted to pick your brain on this. So we had Dave Arnold on earlier this year, and I think you two, maybe there's another couple of guys, but I put you two on this level of look, like all these names I just read that you've worked with, and I think he does the same thing with Honda. I mean, he worked through that incredible era there at Honda, and he told a story about how they signed Rick Johnson, and I wonder if you were privy to that, how that worked out, because the story goes that they did not have permission from the brass at Honda to hire another guy, but they wanted him so badly that he and Roger went down and just signed him. And as they're upstairs, Dave Arnold says he's sweating bullets. He's handing the top Honda guy the contract, waiting for him to just read him the riot act and either tell him no or you know, let him have it. And while he's sitting there, somebody at Yamaha calls, and it's all in Japanese. And he says he's talking, and then he hangs up and he goes, "Fuck those guys! Give me the contract," and signs it. You know, like the guy was yelling at him for stealing Rick Johnson, right? Were you?
I didn't. I wasn't involved in that. I heard something about that. You know, like there was that thing that we were never really supposed to know about, the agreements between them all. But I could believe that's probably the way it went down.
Yeah. You know? I just thought, and Rick didn't even know. Rick goes, "So my contract was no good for the first 2 days."
Yeah, right.
I just thought it was a hilarious story. So all of those people that I read out that you've worked with, and this is just a fraction of them. There's so many more. Are any of those guys, any of them that stand out to you as, I don't know, personally, on a personal level, or just exceptional athletes or people?
You know, Doug Henry is one that will always be close to me just because we've been through so many things, I guess. You know, he rode for us on the 125 two-stroke thing through Downers Grove Yamaha. And then he was noticed by Honda, rode for them, got hurt, you know, whatever, went through his ordeal. And then he, came back for us and did the Supermoto, rode the 4-stroke thing in Las Vegas, you know. He just was so resilient, but then, you know, kind of had these things that always seemed to happen to him. And so just, you know, when you go through these injury things, you tend to get closer to them because you feel bad. You know what I'm saying? Like I said before, you're pushing them to get the best out of them, and then something goes wrong and changes their whole life. And so, you know, he'll always be special to me. Jimmy Button, obviously, same thing. But, you know, there's a lot that motocross list, there's a lot of really good guys. Bob Hanna's always been really close. The 4 guys during that period, you know, Bob, Brock, Rick Burgett, and I don't think that were the 3 guys, I guess I would say, because for over that 2 or 3 year period, they were dominant. We won all these classes. You know, you see, we used to wear this ring. We had this championship ring that our boss made, and that was because Yamaha swept all the classes, including Supercross in that year. And it was kind of cool, you know, and the stories about the ring. Brock got his stolen or lost it, and then he got it back, and I got mine. And then the mechanics got diamonds, and all the riders did. But I told Kenny Clark, I said, "Hey, if we win again, can I have a diamond?" He said, "Yeah." So Bob and I ended up winning our thing again, both classes. So Kenny took his ring, took the diamond out of it, put it in mine, and got a bigger one for himself, you know.
Bigger carrot.
Bigger carrot, yeah. So I've still got mine.
You do?
Cool, yeah.
What a cool keepsake, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
So just, you know, again, I'm sure they're all still very close, but, you know, some of the ones you've gone on to work with are special too, you know, for other projects.
Is there, because, you know, when I was at TLD, we had hired Christian Craig as a fill-in rider, and he went out. It was the last day we were riding our 09 bikes before we started on the 2010s, and this bike was well within its service hours.
Yeah,
but it snapped a valve, and that's when he broke his back. I don't know if you recall that. And I was there that day, and it was just for the mechanic who built the bike, who's an awesome mechanic.
Yeah.
And all of us. I mean, it was just devastating. Like, it's so hard that when you go, man, I know it wasn't our fault, but that was our bike,
right?
And he did nothing wrong.
Take responsibility.
It's very heavy. And so I think about Doug at Budds Creek when he that 4-stroke broke and he did his wrists. Or does that, you know, I don't know what other incidents you may have had in that scenario, but like, does that weigh heavy on you, or were those?
Yeah, it does, especially during that time. You try to let it go. You know, the story that probably of all of the funny stories, I remember being at Redbud with Doug, and that was always a really tough story. I think it was Redbud. I think so. Because I was on the outside of the turn, and he crashed and knocked out his front tooth. And he's on the ground, you know, kind of making this very crazy noise, like blood curdling. That's what I'm thinking. I'm going, Doug, are you okay? And he's going, "Fit." And I'm like, "What?" And he's going, "Fit." And he looked, I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm looking for my tooth." And we find the tooth, and he gets up and gets some milk and put it in, stick it back in, I guess. You know, it's like, you're just going, holy shit, that's okay. If it's only his tooth, I'm okay with that, you know. But you're just wanting him to get through every race and not have anything extra to the already, you know, torn that body. And having to look his wife in the eye when things did go wrong, you know, and being at the hospital, and it's like, geez, it's just as hard. It's really hard.
Doug's story is like so heavy anyway.
Yeah.
Him being so close to getting paralyzed in that first crash on Hondas.
Yeah.
And then, you know, to come back and have the success he did and then have it happen, I was like, man. Yeah, that's, I feel for guys who've been in it as long as you have, because just a little bit I experienced, I'm like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
You know, the race weekends were great. I hated the Monday to Friday in the office.
Yeah.
But those moments of seeing people get hurt that I knew intimately.
Yeah. And we had, for me, you know, it wasn't just motocross, like the road race side. You know, Aaron Gilbert was a kid that rode for us, and he got wadded up pretty big at Daytona, you know, and just getting the guys through that, because that's a super life or death moments for these guys. And so, you know, he was tore up bad. I never thought he really would ride again. He came back and rehabilitated, won another championship, you know, and you know, alcohol started getting the best of him and everything. And you're like, okay, it's time for you just to back off here, you know, and be done. And so, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, what a character he was. I keep forgetting you got to work with all these different.
His brother, he was really a unique guy, and Josh Hay is a pretty special kid. You know, Cameron Bobier, Garrett Gerloff, you know, JD Beats, there's a long list, Jake Gagne. They're all, those guys were closer because those events are 3 and 4 day events. And so you're seeing them like for this little period of time. So you're with them, their girlfriends, their mom, you know, dads, and it's good. It's a fun time, you know. Yeah. It's great.
If you had to pick, and maybe this is sort of the answer you just said, but the 3 most impressive athletes you've worked with.
Well, I mean, Bob, I think would be at my top because I just know what he gave, and when it came to the athletic part, that's what helped him win so much, because he was such a determined guy, mentally, physically, you know, all that. So he would probably be the number 1 guy. Doug, just for his resilience, you know, he, you know, it comes down to like when you separate talent and what they have, you know, what helped them win. So there's 2 things. The talent could be what helps them win, or the amount of effort they give. When you get a guy that does both, unstoppable. But Bob's talent probably wasn't quite as, I don't want to say like a fluid, like a Kevin Windham riding style and how good he was on the bike and stuff, you know. Kevin had a lot of talent. Bob had enough talent and a lot of all the other stuff to go with it. And Doug Henry was in there, the 3rd guy. Trying to think of who that would be. And it may not be a motocross guy. It could be one of the Cameron Bobier. Certainly is like an unbelievable talented road race guy. But, you know, Josh Hayes. I mean, you hate to give a name because there's guys that are equal there that have that same amount of talent too.
Yeah.
That same mixture.
Yeah. I guess we always get focused on just the moto, but there's so many cool disciplines. The car stuff, the Baja off-road stuff.
I mean, for me, they're all like, and that helped me in a sense, like never just think this was all it is. Because for a long time I did, till you get down there and you realize there's some other remarkable stories and guys,
absolutely.
Never ends.
Absolutely. If you had to pick a discipline, you could only watch one for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Well, I mean, Supercross and motocross, I'm never going to want to give up, but I can watch road racing too. I learned to see things that probably a lot of people don't see, and, but yeah, it would be motocross, Supercross, and just know what goes into that and how important the effort from the riders, the strength and everything in the team. There's everything that's kind of important there,
Still your first love, probably.
Yeah, it's what I did for the majority of my life anyway.
You mentioned earlier a big part of your job was playing psychologist or psychiatric guy. Talk a little bit more about that, because I find it interesting that you say every rider is that way.
Yeah, every athlete is that way. I don't think it's just a rider. Every athlete that I know has some level of insecurity, and it always comes. I mean, there's a lot of things that can trigger it. Just like it could be a family thing, something's going on, or their own thing, or a relationship that's gone bad, or who knows what. And then you got to get in there and remind them. The way I would do this, and I want to clarify, this isn't just for athletes. I mean, the team guys have an equal amount of insecurity, some of them as well. So to get them feeling good about what they're doing and what they're not doing and all those things, you kind of need to see the whole field. But on the rider's side, what I would say to them, my biggest thing is whenever there was some success, something that you never wanted them to forget, is to remind them, remember this day. Because when you're feeling like crap and you're sick and you don't know if you can get this done, there'll be a bigger story here, but remember this day. That's why you want to come here. So you can feel just like you do today. So a guy like Bob, who, he felt good winning, but his best win was when he felt bad, because he didn't think he would be able to do it.
Mm.
He didn't expect to be able to do it.
And he still dug in.
He still did it. Right.
I just find that fascinating, because to me, I look at a guy, and actually when we had Carmichael on, and I said, what was it, man? How did you were you just so confident? You just knew you were going to win? And he goes, no, I was terrified to lose.
Right.
Every week I'd go home and go, he says, I'd go home and I just think they're going to figure it out. They're going to come after me. They're going to get me this weekend.
Right.
And he goes, that was my drive. He goes, I was always terrified to lose.
Nobody knew how vulnerable he really was.
I would have never guessed that in a million years. I was an insecure basket case. I had these moments of confidence where I would do well. But like, I thought a guy like him, or a guy like Reed, a guy, these guys who win and stay at this high level. Yeah. Well, they just must have this belief that, and there's no doubt, there's no hesitancy. Yeah. But you're saying, no, we don't have everybody.
Bob, I remember, being on the starting line, reminding him, nobody, look up and down here, look both ways. Nobody here worked as hard as you did. Nobody. Don't forget that. When you're feeling like crap out there in minute 39, these guys think what they must be feeling like. Or 2 laps ago, or whatever it is. There's no way. Yeah. And just keep reminding them. And he, that guy ran, he rode, he put in the effort. Didn't matter, rain or shine, hot or cold, he was on his bike. Yeah. Or bicycle, or whatever was going on.
And at that level, at that high level, the very peak, pointy end, it's all confidence, all belief.
Yeah.
So I think we discount that a lot. Yes, you can get there. You get that confidence by testing, by training your butt off, by practicing a lot. But that's a component that's really tough to put together, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And
I mean, the dedication, because it's not just, going to the gym, it's pretty easy, getting in the track, having people cater to you at the test track and all that's easy. But you still got to live your life. You've got to put all your personal things on hold so you can focus on what it is you got to go do. Mm-hmm. Who are the guys you got to beat? If you're in a 2 or 3 race championship, 2 rider, 3 rider, hey, his picture's on your mirror so you never forget. You wake up wanting to beat that guy, like not wanting to show that mercy, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you want them to feel bad when you beat them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of your reasoning for wanting to get out there. That's why he could never really be close to guys that he would have to race with.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't do that to somebody that you're close to.
He wanted to hate him.
Oh,
yeah, he made himself. Yeah.
Still does to this day, I think, you know, for various reasons. Mainly because he doesn't feel like they earned their money. Like they got paid a lot of money too, and he beat their ass, you know? So I don't know. That was his little trigger, you know, that worked. And
well,
you know,
he made it work. That's for dang sure. You've seen, we talked a little bit about this, but you've seen a lot of different models for race teams. So the full factory effort, the satellite effort. I mean, you guys have had Yamaha of Troy, you've had Mach 1, L&M, San Manuel. I mean, you guys now Star. What's the model going forward here? Well, for our sport, I mean, you know, I look at NASCAR or these other bigger sports, and Chevrolet isn't out running their own race team. You know, they provide the support,
sure,
and it's someone else's job.
Yeah.
But in our sport, you look at Gibbs, and you think if JGR can't do it, if they can't make it, then how in the world are we gonna?
Yeah. But then maybe they didn't make it for, you know, again, you know, every team's got its moment in time, you know, and for sure, I think that the satellite team is good, and I think they're the long-term future for things to grow and hopefully more of them. And the reasoning is, you know, that gives you more opportunity for other sponsors to come into the sport, which that's what's going to help it live, right? You can't just survive on Monster or Red Bull or whomever, you know, the big people you got to have, the other groups as well. So that allows those things to happen. And, you know, there's a lot of other things that are kind of hidden, like laws that these big companies have to worry about, you know, in terms of employees or non-employees or traveling and overtime and meals and what goes on. And a lot of things that we did or try to do are specific in nature to some of those things that we had to abide by.
Right.
So it just business becomes more difficult or more expensive for just the 5 or 6 factories to want to do that, you know? So I think that the inevitability is that everybody's going to have satellite teams that they use, or multiple satellite teams. We've been very successful, you know, with them in terms of championships. And you just need to check your ego at the door and say, look, I was still part of all those. Hell, I did the contract with most of them, you know?
Right.
So I have a certain amount of gratitude to them to do, because I know the work they had to do and the guys doing it. So, but there's not everybody feels that same way, you know?
And there was a time, I'm going to probably fudge up the years. I think it was right after Langston was there where you guys did away with the factory team. And then, I don't know, maybe it was several years later, you had Cooper Webb move it up and you guys brought the factory effort back.
Yeah.
Talk about that. What was the motivation behind that?
I mean, we always, you know, so when the team goes out of your house, you lose a little bit of control, right? And sometimes there's a difference of opinion about the way things can or should be getting done, you know, and you never really know who's right. But so, you know, having it internal, you have a lot more control. And I don't mean like I'm saying you're wrong and I'm right. It's just things that you want to do when it's out, you lose that control.
Sure.
So if you want to give somebody what you feel is the best, sometimes it's got to be in-house for you to make that kind of investment to get those things, whether it's suspension or maybe their suspension company doesn't want to give you the best if it's not under your control. You know, it could be a lot of things, variable things, or the factory doesn't want certain things out of your control, you know?
Yeah.
And so you just don't know what's coming your way. But for sure, it's all done, whatever is being done is done to give the rider the best that you could give them. Otherwise, you shouldn't really be doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, and I feel like you guys have, whatever the formula is with Star, holy cow. Yeah. I mean, this is a team that a decade ago was definitely a subpar team. I mean, it was like, if you were going there, it's like,
And they, you know, number one, Bobby and Loretta Reagan love what they do in this sport. Bobby Reagan can tell you things that he did when he was first traveling, both of them, sleeping in their car, investing their money, or rather winning at the, she likes to gamble. And believe me, her winnings have supported that team.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yes, a number of times outside of their Chevrolet dealership and all that. So they've invested personally, hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm sure. So the fact that they would listen, to, and I don't want to sit here and say we taught them everything, but for me personally, I've always been very open and very direct with things that I thought they needed to do as a team, whether it was Brad Hoffman talking about motor mounts and how they help the frame flex, or Bobby Reagan about personnel and having the right team manager to do the job, or, I've always been open in giving them what I would consider part of the formula for success. And then they throw their own spin on it. Bobby's a great motivator with these guys. If you're fortunate enough to be in the truck when he has a little powwow, or a kid like Aaron Plessinger, when Aaron needs to be relaxed, Bobby might look at him and say, Aaron, let's sing us home.
Yeah.
And it's just that charismatic and that easygoing, and knowing he wants the best for you too. He wants to be that guy to give you the opportunity to make hundreds of thousands of dollars if you just work hard, and he's willing to do his side to help you get there. So regardless if it was them or the Gibbs team, Gibbs had their way, certain things they wanted it done this way. You can't, they're putting out the money. You can't say no. And whether it worked or not, maybe it did or maybe it didn't,
Right.
But we didn't do any less for them in terms of, let me give you this advice. If you want to win at Supercross in January and February, you probably need to be doing it out here, or the ground is unlike nowhere else you're going to go.
Right.
And they never wanted to do that. When we did do it, when we were able to get them here, they had some margin, some level of success, but they were kind of dug in about that. I respect they did what they felt they needed to do, and I hope they didn't do it to want to prove me wrong, because that doesn't mean anything. At the end of the day, it's about winning for all of us.
Sure.
So, for me, I never try to take it personal either way, what I'm giving or what I'm getting. I don't, understand there's tense moments for people, and I don't want to make it personal like that.
Yeah. Now, business is business. There's a lot of hair on those issues, right?
Trying to rebound from that personal stuff.
Yeah.
But
can race teams turn a profit in our sport?
Yes, yeah, they could. Yes. I'm sure that, I don't know that anybody's doing it for that reason. I think they just want to make sure they pay their bills.
Yeah.
Because they always want to keep reinvesting, getting better, and, you got to pay the people that are helping you. But they can.
I just look at, all the teams that have come and gone. FMF, Honda, L&M, Gibbs now, Mach 1, what was the team Wardy managed there for a minute? And there's been dozens of them, right? Mitch is stuck around. There's a handful that have been there a long time, but I just think it's got to be difficult. I'm not privy to those books.
Well, number one, the companies, part of the reason they want to have an aftermarket or satellite team is they don't want to have to pay for everything, right? And if they were going to do that, they might as well have it themselves. So in that pretense, then these teams are dependent on sponsorship too, to help offset whatever these big companies aren't paying for. So, again, it's cyclic. If the money comes from sponsors have budgets, and their budgets are dependent on their sales, and COVID-19 didn't do anybody any favors, further away you get from the team thing. So, I think that probably leading up to it, people were doing okay. They were probably getting all their bills paid. I don't recall any big problems where guys were calling me saying, hey, I didn't get my money, So I think it was going okay, and I think it will rebound once we get back. I drive around here, I see people in restaurants and things are going, and no masks, and everybody's happy. So I'm pretty sure they'll get back to what was a normal, and hopefully better than that.
Yeah.
Because companies are going to, shows like this are going to promote all of these things and help companies realize, hey, I can do better than what I was doing. There's more out there, for me to promote my product.
I've always thought that a key component to a team sticking around long term is that they've got to have a product in this industry they can sell. Mitch Payton obviously sells pro circuit products. Troy Lee Design's selling gear.
Yeah.
But I look at Star and I'm thinking, outside of cars in Texas. He's not really selling any products, but he's thriving. So he kind of
that's where their personal passion comes in. Like I said, whether they're getting all their bills paid, they're willing to put their own money in. I call it their own skin in the game.
Yeah.
Because they want to win. That's the ultimate gift for Bobby and Loretta, is to win. And then they look at the kids that they've pushed on. You know, they don't have kids of their own. These are their kids. Yeah. These are their families. Whether that kid rides for them today or goes to somewhere else, I guarantee you all of those people are still great friends with the Reagans.
Yeah.
Because they gave them opportunity beyond what Yamaha or anybody else gave them at that time. They made it happen.
Yeah.
With not just their money, but their dynamic teams, their personalities, the quality of guys that they're putting out there, you know. And that goes for mechanics and drivers, truck drivers. Everybody in the industry owes them some daily gratitude along the way.
Absolutely.
Because they made it happen.
Yeah, I never really looked at it that way, but you look at all the kids who've come out of there and made a lot of money, gone on to achieve a lot of their goals because of them. That's got to feel good for them. You're right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You were at Yamaha for,
44 years.
Okay, 4.5 decades.
Something like that, yeah.
4.5 decades of racing. What was your favorite? What was your favorite era?
My favorite era?
Of motocross.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's good. It's been good now. It was back then. I mean, again, there was a lot of, in the early days, it was fun. After, you know, the racing, after the camaraderie, and everybody goes, oh, that's so cool. But it was very cool, and I'm glad I was able to take part of it, but it never was really achieving the level that I knew the sport could get to. So seeing the amount of people and you know, what they'll go through to come to the races and everything, it's kind of awesome to be a part of that, you know?
Yeah.
And to help have built it. I feel like I have, because I've been on these rules committees and talking to promoters and people that would listen. And I remember talking to the national promoters, giving them a list of things that they want these things to be successful. They got to make them more common, you know, things. And Kerry and the Coombs family grabbed the bull by the horns and put the series together where one race feels like the other to all the competitors and I'm sure to all the spectators, and how you get your passes and the tickets and how the show goes. I mean, that stuff just didn't happen. Mm-hmm. That came with guys like me or Dave Arnold or, you know, Bruce Sternstrom, or pick your guy. I don't want to leave anybody out, but pick somebody that put their input, you know, their feelings to these promoters and to our companies, and to try to show them this is the way to make this stronger and better and everlasting, you know. And so I feel good about all that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that I feel that 20 years ago was better than it is today. It's got to be the best it's ever been right now. Mm. So like I told you before, I don't want to look back. I want to be thankful that I was part of it. I survived it. I helped people in my time, did the best I could do, but I'm quite happy now that I'm upright and enjoying getting to go to that race at Paula, because of Bobby and Loretta invited me and my wife, and had a great time with them, watching their team thrive, watching the racing be good. The track was awesome, you know, everything was perfect.
Was it, what was the feeling different? But just being there as a spectator instead of having
a little bit. You know, and it is because you don't, you know, when you're the guy in the team and somebody that's not part of it on a daily basis walks in, you're kind of feeling like, what are you doing in my house? So I don't want to be that guy to those guys, you know. Yeah. It's funny, my boss, Kenny Clark, used to always show up at the races, and he'd have all these pictures. He carried around pictures, right, with sailboat and all the stuff that he was doing. And for me, it was a distraction. I liked Kenny, I got along good with him, but my mind was focused on somewhere else. And I said, I'm never going to be that guy. Well, guess what? Now I'm going to the races. I pulled my phone out, and I got pictures of him. I got pictures of my son's dogs and them swimming and all the grand, you know, whatever. I've got my own set of pictures. So I'm kind of like him too. Yeah. So I really don't want to be distracting in a time when I know they need to focus. I don't want their seat falling off because of me or any of those other things. So it's different, but in a positive way. I can stand back, and when I go to these races, I know what I'm looking for to help somebody not make that mistake, or double check something that I saw they got distracted. You know, I want to be that guy for them. Yeah. You know? So I'm okay with it.
I experienced that on a much smaller level. After managing Troy's team, the next couple of years, I've come into the pits and I'm acting like I'm still part of the team. Hey guys, and I'm walking through the semi, and then you start to go, oh, I'm not a part of this team anymore. Like I need to stay over here in the hospitality side and
just enjoy it. And that's enjoy it. I never went to the races to be able to enjoy it. It's always been work, and I enjoyed that work, but not to the level where I don't worry about the responsibility.
Right.
So now when I go and I can be that guy, I think it's good. As long as you got a place to put your bag, that's the one thing. Like having a backpack and not having somewhere. So Brett and Chrissy would come and I understand what they're thinking, because when I don't have that, I don't like it either.
Yeah.
So but Bobby, I'm sure if Bobby and Loretta's doing it, I'll have a place, or Jim or whoever, Roach.
Tell me if this drove you crazy. This is a little bit of a rabbit hole. My biggest pet peeve when I was managing the team is people would take a bottle of water out of the cooler, take about 2 sips of it, set it down, and by the end of the day, there's 45 bottles of water, half drank, sitting all over the place.
Yeah.
Used to drive me bananas.
Yeah. It's a big one of mine too. Big enough to where I wanted to get dots, or I asked people to put their initials on it, so at least we know who it is, because I don't want to drink after people and I know they don't. Yeah. And the bad part was, sometimes I was guilty of that too. I tried to just stick it in my pocket, especially at a road race. We used to do this big hospitality thing. We go through pallets of water, and so I put the little recycling things, thinking, okay, I'm just going to dump the water in these coolers that we have. They're the
swamp cooler.
Yeah, the swamp cooler thing. And so at least I save the water, recycle the bottle and everything, and I'd be okay. But I couldn't do it with a Coke or whatever.
I used to pour it in the coffee maker.
Yeah, there you go.
That probably pissed people off if they knew that. But anyway,
I share that.
I'm sure all team managers, it's got to drive them nuts. Yamaha was obviously at the tip of the spear, moving into that 4-stroke revolution.
Yeah.
And I wonder if now, seeing where we're at, do you have any reservations about, like, was that maybe a mistake for us? I mean, bikes are easier to ride than they've ever been, but they're more expensive than they've ever been. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
I think that you can't stop technology. I mean, if you try to put this label on it or whatever, I mean, think about all the things, our cell phones, okay, I mean, we didn't have them. Certainly they make your life more complicated, but they also make it more productive too.
Right.
And so when I think of that 4-stroke, my personal experience was, one of the companies tried to do it way back in my early days, and they kind of failed miserably at it with reliability and function and all those things. And the fact that, me personally was able to be part of something and the way it went on was pretty stinking awesome. And it's funny how these two lines of 4-stroke and cell phones intersect for me. But when I was asked to go to Japan to test to be part of this group that did all this, cell phones were just coming out.
Yeah.
And I was standing there on a mountain in the middle of nowhere with a flip cell phone from somebody who says, here, call your wife. You are not going to believe where I'm at and what I'm talking to you on, And so it's like it was a moment for me that I'll never forget. Standing in that umbrella corner at Sepang, they're asked to go there for a road race test. And I'm like, I watched it on Formula One. I was a Formula One guy. That's an unmistakable corner. And I'm standing on it, looking around, calling home, going, you're not going to believe this,
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, but as far as the 4-stroke itself, I don't think it was a mistake. I think it made it good for many more riders to be better riders. And when you stop and look about, in the days of the 2-stroke thing, there was always 1, 2, or maybe 3 guys that could get the job done. Now we've got 10 or 12. That wasn't going to happen with 2-strokes. Just wasn't. So,
well, they were more difficult to ride.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the whole point, is that people couldn't master, traction and throttle control, and where the 4-strokes have traction with no throttle control, So, I mean, I just think that we wouldn't be looking at the type of racing we're looking at if we were back on 2-strokes again. I don't think that would be true. But maybe I'm wrong. And I think that from a company standpoint, I don't want to speak for them, but I'll say this. If people still wanted to buy 2-strokes in the numbers that they're buying 4-strokes, they'd be happy to sell them.
Right.
It's one of the reasons Yamaha doesn't stop making them. People are still buying them sub-number to make it reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
But, the development of them stop and all the regulations that get put on them, it's all kind of relevant,
Yeah.
So, but I don't think it was a mistake. I think it enhanced it.
And don't take me wrong. I know Yamaha did, I'm not putting blame on them for the people that don't like the 4-stroke movement.
Yeah.
This was pushed a decade earlier by the EPA and other agencies here in California, CARB and all that, right? It was going to happen whether Yamaha did it or someone else jumped on it.
Yeah.
And I'm not a hater. I just am curious about it because there are people that, are of that opinion.
Well, they're probably older, number one, and they're not very mechanically inclined, number two.
Yeah.
So everything that this adds to their, challenge of working on their own bikes, it makes it tough. I get that,
Well, and I'm that guy. I can't pull I could build a 2-stroke engine all day long.
Yeah.
I won't.
I think you could. If somebody just walked you through it. And the other thing to think about is the 4-stroke doesn't need the maintenance as often as the 2-stroke did.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of, even though the parts might be a little more expensive, you're doing it 1/3 the time. So in the end, it all kind of comes back to the center.
Well, and especially now, I think in the first few years, they were blowing up a lot more, and it was buying a used 250F was like a risky proposition.
Yeah.
Now, unless the thing was really hammered.
As soon as you heard the word it's been hopped up, that should make you run. Because they don't understand piston to valve clearance or any of the other things that are critical for a 4-stroke.
Yeah.
But I think it's good.
All right. So let me ask you the next question that comes after this. When is electric going to happen?
I don't know. I'm sure it's going to happen. I just don't know if it'll be in my lifetime where, the other stuff's all outlawed. But it was funny. I was watching an Formula race the other day, and first time I'm like, I'm going to see how this is going to be. What's the sound I'm going to hear that's going to draw me into it, I just know how gnarly electric can accelerate. I grew up on slot cars and electric braking and acceleration, so kind of have a little bit of that, and I'm trying to understand like the push on your seat when you mash on something that
Have you ever ridden in a Tesla?
Yes, I have. But I've not ridden in one to the point where my son was going to buy one and we took a couple of test drives, but I don't think it had the ludicrous mode. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, the plaid and ludicrous. Yeah.
It just like goes from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds or something,
It's incredible.
Yeah, you spend a little more money and have a better battery or something. But yeah, so I think it can be just as exhilarating to drive it, but without the noise and all the other things. So I gotta believe there's going to be a time when we're going to watch it.
What was your take on the Formula One, the E1?
Well, I didn't watch it long enough because there was a big crash and it went on, they were just going around and I'm just hearing this, kind of thing, and I didn't want to stick it out, but I think it probably could have been okay.
Yeah. I think that, I rode the Alta a little bit when it was right before it went under.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other one? Zero.
Yeah.
I've ridden some of their street bikes.
On the street, yeah.
And the performance is impressive. I don't think that's going to be the issue. I think the issue or the concern that I have is I cannot imagine sitting in Angel Stadium and you hear all the people talking and chatter and the announcer, and then the gate drops and just like you said, you hear it sounds like RC cars because the smell of the exhaust, the vibration when they're all revved up on the line. Man, I don't know. I got to believe every fan, you get those butterflies and that feeling in your chest.
Well, what's funny is just think about society and where we're at and what are the things that our society is squashing. It's noise, air pollution, just all those things, all of which the sport that we love contributes to that.
Yeah.
So, whether we like it or not, somebody's going to be telling us these are no good for you, The hearing can damage your hearing and the smell can give you a COPD or whatever. So if you want to have it, you're probably going to be funneled into this thing somewhere along the line. So again, I don't think it has to be a bad thing. there's lots of kids on statics or whatever electric things are having the time of their life.
Yeah.
And for the parent that doesn't know how to put a spark plug in, he just got to plug in a charger, which his cell phone taught him how to do that, when to do that, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I see the inevitability of all these things. And so you can either embrace it and try to understand it and be good with it and use it to your benefit, or just, find something else. For me,
We can go on
I like guns. I'm always going to shoot guns. I don't know that I'm going to have a magnetic gun to shoot that doesn't need powder or anything. But so, I'll still be wearing earmuffs unless they legalize silencers, which will protect my hearing.
Sure.
But I just think that technology is just coming our way, and
I think you're right when you said you can't stop progress.
Yeah.
And to try to fight it or stave it off, it's kind of futile, right? But I think that there's things with electric, you can open riding areas where you would never have been able to ride with noise and all that stuff. So that there are some good things. I just can't picture it in a.
They call us old school. So
I suppose, man.
We gotta be new school. We gotta be progressive school.
And I think when it'll happen, this is just I'm sure you know more. Maybe you can't say anything. I know Yamaha's, they already make mountain bikes, e-bike.
Yeah.
You guys have electric motors.
Yeah.
Honda, they've debuted that electric 250, or I don't know what they're calling it, a 250 equivalent. That thing's been around for a little bit. I know all the manufacturers have their fingers on that pulse, but like you said, now we got kids on Stasics. KTM's making the 50 as an electric bike. I don't think they're even making a gas 50 anymore.
Yeah.
I think when that generation grows up, they're going to be comfortable with electric.
Yeah.
And that will be the progression.
Yeah.
So count that out, 10 years, 8 years.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know when. I would be surprised if it didn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm okay with it. It's funny, I like riding bicycles, but I know there's a big hill between my house and Irvine Park. I can't get without the E component.
Yeah.
So it made it awesome. Made me enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
So
well, I have a specialized e-bike and I don't ride anything else anymore.
Yeah.
It does everything but better and more fun. I don't know what else to tell people.
Yeah. My sense back to that though is I think the companies, for sure, they're looking at it, but I think much like Yamaha and the 2-stroke or the 4-stroke thing, as long as people want to buy them and want to hang on to that, I think they would be willing to sell them unless,
EPA dictates.
some other political thing forces them to change course, So,
well, shoot, you look at California, the law passed the law 2035, no more internal combustion engines. Is that right?
Yeah, so I don't think they can sell a internal combustion pressure washer right now in California. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
The big companies can't. The little ones, they still get away with things. But.
Meanwhile, when it gets hot here, the governor issues a statement saying, no one plug in your electric cars. We can't run enough air conditioning units.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, tell me about this. Is a question I've had. I've always wanted to pick your brain on.
Yeah.
The current generation of YZFs it's an interesting thing to me because the 250 is like class leading, right? I mean, it's won every shootout. They seem like they win championships every year.
Yeah.
That bike is a weapon.
Yeah.
The 450 has just not had the success at the pro level.
Yeah.
It's won some shootouts. It's a good bike in stock trim, but when you at the highest level, for whatever reason, and I'm curious to get your take, it's been a tough go for them. And I think Star's done a good job this year. Those guys look like maybe they figured some things out, but what's your take on it?
They're having more success with it too. I think there's probably some reasons behind. I don't want to get into too deep of it, but again, big company, small company, and small company is much more nimble to be able to get to where they need to go, and not looking at the numbers that say Yamaha is, or it's funny, the production of things, like what it takes to do productions in Japan, a country with not a lot of resources of its own, right?
Mm-hmm.
So their vendors are quite important, where they get pieces, the strategic long-term play to build any of these things, it's a big deal. So I think the way that they go about that limits some of the things that they really want to do, that the designer might want to do. They just can't figure out a way to do some things. So you know, they just keep chipping away at design. You know, when I was there, I saw some designs that were quite a few years out that would benefit the things that they probably need to improve to make that 450 the best bike. And I think they'll get there. I think, you know, maybe in the next few years they'll be coming out with that unless something changed for even a better direction, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that, you know, the way that Yamaha does production, where they're using common parts for different things, one, it's always going to be better on one than the other, right?
Right.
Either the 450 is going to be good for that because they need it, or the 250, but it's not probably not going to be both. And so,
like they share a frame and all right. So
components, right?
Just looking at, I'm no physicist or engineer, but I think based on weight and torque numbers and horsepower, I don't see how the same exact frame can work.
Yeah,
great in both, right?
Well, I mean, I think that they're, you know, certainly the engine plates and the design of the engine itself, that, you know, it helps with the twist and rotational numbers of the frame rigidity. I think they're good at it. They're getting better at it all the time, just aluminum frames in general, you know.
Yeah. How
weak can we make it to make it strong enough over here, you know? So.
And to kind of highlight the point you're talking about and make sure I'm understanding it right, I've asked this question, and the answer I got, like, why does a 250 come with KYB and a 450 comes with Showa? This one comes with Dunlop, this one comes with Bridgestone.
Yeah.
It's because they want to, those Japanese companies want to kind of share all of that, right?
Exactly. But, you know, I don't know, the fact that it uses somebody's component different, you know, it's kind of, I would use the analogy when we had a 450 team, factory team, or the 250 satellite team, it was impossible for us to do it all. So we had to make a decision. Where do you go? By putting the 250 team over there allowed us to do our 450 team different. So when it comes to those components, just because it worked on the 250 doesn't mean it's right for the 450, but it allows those separate companies to be specialists for each of those groups, right? So it's not a bad thing, I don't think. It's just a different thing.
Yeah.
So again, few vendors, you know, only several to choose from on what they're going to do. And the guy, the project leader for that bike, wants it to be the very best it can be. But somebody above him is going, hey, man, we got to use this vendor because these guys are overloaded. So let's do the best we can do, you know? So I think it's more of something like that.
This is a little bit off topic, but I given your position, I'm curious on your take on it. What the hell's going on with Suzuki? I feel like at a time they had the best 125, the best 80. They won 125 championships all the time. They at times they put a lot of effort into racing, and man, it's just you're looking at a bike that hasn't changed in a decade, and I worry that they pull out altogether.
Yeah, for sure. They went through a very low period there where the production just, you know, I mean, they used to sell a boatload of street bikes, and that dropped off, you know, just when the street bike trend changed, right? So that, again, when I talked earlier about certain areas they come in that were strong, helping the weaker areas, but when your strong area now becomes a weak area and your weak area gets weaker, now you've really got trouble. So they don't really have any of the home runs to give some extra bazooka Joe over here, you know?
Right. So when I read that at a time they dominated like the mini SUV market, the Suzuki Samurai, if you remember that. They had these small little vehicles that they sold a ton of globally. Right. And then Honda and Toyota and all these others came in with competing vehicles.
That and the compliance and the political thing, you know, how it tips over, you got to do this. I mean, all these safety regulations kill these companies, you know, even though it's a big company doing a small run, that's a huge expense to putting something on the market, you know. So US being a pretty big chunk of that goes away. Now you really got problems where you got no source of revenue to draw from.
Right.
So I think that's just the catch-22. KTM comes in, Husky comes in, more pressure on the motocross stuff, bad for Suzuki. You know. So it's just, again, I don't know the details. I mean, again, you can look at some of the data and see they're not selling stuff and dropping fairly rapid. So it doesn't look good, that's for sure.
Well, you got inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
What does that mean to you? How important is that to you?
it was pretty special. I mean, I probably, I think I wouldn't be lying if I said it wasn't special to me too, but maybe it was more to my family than me because it validated me being gone all that time, going somewhere, doing something for somebody else, to be recognized for it.
Yeah, you give up a lot of your time. People don't realize racing is consuming.
All family life.
All consuming.
Yeah. And those are other things like I regret some of that as much as I regretted not tightening those bolts or whatever, it all weighs on you. But yeah, it was, I think about it all the time that it's something that there's a lot of people that deserve it too that may never get in there.
Well, thanks. I know. I mean, they haven't reached him.
Yeah, exactly. No, you know what I mean? Like it's when you talk about, hey, I don't see myself as being in the company of those same guys too, but they see me, like John Krasinski's a road race guy, I mean, I've known John since he grew up, know his dad really well, world champion guy, got him, into our teams and stuff. And hey, I'm on the stage with him or Wayne Rainey or whatever, Kenny Roberts, my heroes too, right?
Yeah.
So suddenly I'm in that group. So yeah, it's good.
It's incredibly cool.
I hear a lot of compliments on my speech because I tied in a few things,
Yeah.
Yamaha. So it's on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, I watched it.
Yeah,
it's great. Yeah, it's great. What was it Yamaha University?
YMU, yeah.
YMU, yeah.
Certificate.
Well, yeah, again, there's a lot of incredible riders, incredible industry people who've done a lot who are not in there.
Yeah.
So it's a big honor.
Sad, but it's good.
Yeah. If you look back on your whole career, your whole life at this point, what are you most proud of? What are the things you're most proud of? Personally and professionally.
Yeah, personally, they're sitting right here.
Yeah, your grandson over here?
My son, my daughter, my wife, we've done a lot of stuff, just my family in general, I mean, it's kind of like every man has a great wife behind him, and you got that thing can just go down, your family, and that's where you get your direction, your north on your compass, comes from your family and stuff. So yeah, I'm really proud of that. And work wise, yeah, I'm proud of that. I think that I was lucky to be in the positions working with the people that I have been able to work with, some of the bosses that I've had, and they're the way that they allowed me to do the job and had
belief in you,
belief in me, and that things were okay. I've had both people that wanted to restrict you and control everything, and the other ones where they just let you go and let you show them that you can do it, knowing that you have their best interest at heart too, So that's been a moment in my life. But right now I feel like I used to run a lot, and the first mile I went out, you get that pain in your spleen where it's really trying to put blood in your body. You just kind of have to take, it's all in your breathing at that point, right? And I feel that's where I'm at right now, is I'm just trying to let that cramp get away and breathe properly so I can see what's coming next and how far I can go. And I don't know what that's going to be, I know I enjoy watching him do stuff, and I was helping my son out with some of his stuff, and my daughter's back on her feet, getting going good. And so I really want to do something for ourselves, or myself. My wife and I, we both enjoy shooting. We do a little bit of that, but we haven't done much of it for various reasons. And so we're getting to do some of that. Dogs, we found the breed of our life. We love our little pitties, My son's dogs are just...
Pit bulls?
Yeah, pits. Yeah. I was going to bring one today, Ashbury. He's super compatible everywhere you go. But I thought, man, I didn't want to leave the other one at home alone.
Yeah.
So that's really good. But, just getting back, doing stuff with family again that, whatever, like I said, I don't know what's next. But
whatever you want.
Whatever. I enjoy getting a call from Bobby Reagan, just throwing something at me, and I'll tell him what I can tell him and what I think. And okay, so just.
Well, that's got to feel nice too, that whether it's Bobby Reagan or it's old racers or Bob, unless you change your phone number, they're going to continue to call you and bounce ideas off you and check in on you. That's got to feel good too,
That was a big deal getting to keep my number, because it's like I've had it forever. You know? So it's a drama, but I got it. So good.
What was it was there a catalyst that made you decide to retire? Did you hit
Well, truth be told, you know, we were going through some restructuring, and, you know, I was forced with having to, you know, when you're a manager, you know, you've got 25 people working for you every day, every week, every month. You're looking at that list going, if they tell me that I got to let 5 guys go, you got to figure out who those 5 are going to be. Not a fun place to be, not from a personal standpoint or professional, but it's part of the job. It's part of what I was taught to be the job. And I got that call telling me that I needed to do something. And so this happened to me probably 3 times at Yamaha over 3 periods. And part of it is to make sure that who's ever left can do the job at hand. That's one of my requirements, or was one of my requirements. And the other one is, you know, who can be impacted in a personal way. You know, the younger guys, they have a chance to rebound and to figure things out and get by in their life. Sometimes the older guys don't necessarily get that. So I really looked at, you know, what was going on and made decisions that impacted me too. By me giving up my job, left somebody else with the job. So, you know, it worked out to where Yamaha stepped up and really treated me and a couple other guys who were in that older category that were on the cusp of, do you want to retire or not? And we made it work. And so it saved 3 other jobs or whatever down there. So for me, it's not like I don't know when ready was. It's like having kids. You're never ready, but when you have them, you get ready. You are ready, right? So retiring wasn't something on my...
So this wasn't a planned thing.
Agenda, not specifically, but it worked out to be acceptable and okay, and the people at Yamaha made it comfortable, you know?
So, well, that's a classy thing to do. I think there's people that probably wouldn't, some that wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, maybe.
You know? Yeah, that's interesting.
But, you know, again, I don't regret the decision, and, you know, again, sometimes you don't talk about all that because it's not that important to everybody. But, you know, I feel really good how I left the group, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Who did take the spot over there? Who's kind of leading?
Well, they didn't necessarily fulfill what I was doing 100%. So, but the guy named Jim Roach is the guy, he's the department manager now. Okay. And Tom Halverson, who has been there for a long time, is his, assistant manager, much like Mike Guerra was my guy, you know.
Did Mike retire as well?
Retired as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. So we both were on the same schedule. So December 31st was both of our last days. He did a couple of months worth of work in the beginning of the year for them too. But so we were both out at the same time and in the same way. And Bob Oliver left, you know, I think a year before, 6 months or somewhere before us.
Mm-hmm. So it's a real changing of the guard over there. I mean, you know, like you just said, 44 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Mike was there quite as long, but a long time.
He was there a long time too.
And Bob Oliver, same thing. Very influential people at Yamaha Racing.
Yeah.
So crazy.
But you know, they're still kicking butt and taking names, you know. So
yeah,
that's where you got to not let your ego get in it, you know.
Yeah. That's awesome. Kind of our final question we always ask our guests is, what do you want your legacy to be in this sport? How do you want people to remember you?
I don't know. You know, when I told you in the beginning when I was working with Bob, especially, that I probably wasn't the nicest guy. I rode that same wave of insecurity and, you know, just, you know, focusing was what I called it at the time. And so you weren't the nicest guy to people, but I would like people to think of me as somebody that they could always talk to with whatever the problems were, whether they're personal in nature or professional in nature or just life in general, and that I would give them some nugget that they could take to help them through that moment. That's how I would like it to be. Now, I'm sure that wasn't the first 10 years of my, you know, mechanic career or whatever, because I just didn't have that time. Honestly, I didn't really care enough about other people to want to be that guy. It wasn't until later that I was responsible for them that I suddenly had to change my dynamic. You know?
Yeah. Well, when you're a mechanic, it's a singular focus, right?
I'm responsible for me and that guy. You know? If you don't want to wear shoes, then that's up to you. You know?
Yeah.
So I guess that's really what it would be. It's not about how many races or how many things. It's just that I was a good person that they could talk to, and you know, it didn't have to be from the same team. They could just be people that I knew or they knew me, and they wanted to ask a question and hey, give me a shout.
Yeah. Well, I just going through your career here, man. What an impressive 44 years.
Yeah.
The things that you have done and accomplished there at Yamaha, the people you've worked with, it's staggering.
I used to ask this question whenever I hired somebody, and I don't remember why I started asking it, but I decided to do it because I wanted them to think that there was more. I guess I wanted them to think there was more to this job. And I said, we know how this job is going to start, but how's it going to end? And what I really
That's a tough question.
It's a tough one. And I wanted it to be like, it doesn't need to be hostile. Business is business, and things change. Life for you evolve. And so it could be something out of your control that changes a direction that you have to go. But think about that. You know, today, if I had to give you that answer today, how's it going to end? You know, mine ended on at least my Yamaha life. And I don't know that it's over. It's just I don't get, you know, not in the normal thing, but, you know, it's still very amicable, and that's good.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think you gain that perspective over time, right?
Yeah.
When you were younger, like you said, your first 10 years, you were very just focused and driven. But as you get older, you start to, your vision expands, right? And you get that 30,000 foot. Yeah.
All your experiences, you start to realize this guy had them for the last 15 years, you know? Yeah. I remember I had a conversation with, this was tough. So, you know, motocross, now, not to delay this, but it's a story I want you to hear. You know, motocross, there's a lot of seats available usually, right? We have a 250 team that has the East-West program. So at any given time, there's 8 to 10 places that you can put people as they progress through their career. In road racing, it's much different because the expense to do the job is much higher, the number of people you need, the cost of the equipment. The only thing that offsets that is the number of races is lower. So it almost comes out to be the same. So, but I was asked by all these writers sometimes, or actually Josh Hayes' wife asked me this question about my job and how I looked at the writers and everything. And I told her, you know, like all of these guys, when we won all of these classes in, I think it was 2015, it's Moto America's first year, and Yamaha won every class and won every race, right? Think about that for a minute. Contingency was through the roof. I mean, we had to pay every wooden nickel that we put out there for it, you know, but more than that, the rider development suddenly became a monster. You've got Jake Gagne and JD Beach and Cameron Bobier and Garrett Gerloff and Josh Hayes and everybody wanting to ride a Yamaha, you know, and there's a few I'm probably forgetting, but it's like, how do you do it? Like Joe Roberts was in there at the time. Josh Herron was in there at the time. How do you take care of all of them? I said, I worry about all of them. I want them all to flourish. Man, it becomes this nightmare that you just got to give it a little bit of time, really ask yourself the tough questions. Who's in it for the right reasons? Who's willing to put in the effort and to maximize everybody's investment, you know? And I think it worked out really well. I don't think anybody was extremely pissed off at me. They all ended up in some good spot to give them more opportunity. So, I mean, that's at the end of the day, that was my job, you know?
Yeah. That's a tough position.
Yeah.
You got to make tough decisions. Yeah.
And that's why I said when I didn't have to think about it anymore, I don't wake up at 2 a.m. for things like that anymore.
A little bit of weight off the shoulders.
A lot of weight.
Well, we sure appreciate you taking the time today. I know folks are going to love hearing your story.
Thanks.
If they're a fan of this sport and they know what you've done, it's impressive.
Cool.
So I will shake your hand.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate giving the call and having the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much. Keith McCarty, stay tuned. We're going to be right back to wrap up the show.
Thanks, David.
I wanna be bad with you, girl, like we're robbing a bank. I wanna be mad at the world, like it took you away.
All right, everybody, welcome back. I want to again thank Keith McCarty. For those of you who weren't really familiar with all of the things that he's done, just incredible, the number of athletes he's dealt with over the years, and not just motocross and supercross, but road racing, off-road, supermoto. It's really incredible. The fact that he was inducted into the AMA Hall of Fame should tell you everything you need to know about him and how influential he's been in motorcycling and motorsports in general. So just really appreciate his time, and thankful that he came in. I want to just also thank one of our sponsors here. Support for the Whiskey Throttle Show is brought to you by Manscaped. They are the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. They're offering precision engineering tools for your family jewels. And they just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the 4.0, the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0. And you can join the over 2 million men who've already trusted Manscaped with this exclusive offer, 20% off using the code Whiskey Throttle. And that's free shipping worldwide and on anything you want over there using the code Whiskey Throttle. And they also have a nose hair trimmer, the Weed Whacker. Amazing product. Quit plucking those things. This thing is simple, easy. You don't want to have a big old bush hanging out of your nose. It's no good. So handle that. They've also got mats. If you want to lay those down to shave them, that are disposable. They've got nut balm, ball balm, whatever they call it. Listen, I don't know. Maybe you're getting shaved when you're trimming these things up. You can smooth those babies right up. I'm one of the first people that actually got to try this. They sent all of their podcast partners the 1st generation, and the thing's legit. I can tell you right now, it works. My testicles are shiny and smooth like a shaved seal. They're amazing. My wife will let you know that that's facts. The craftsmanship and detail on the 4.0 are next level. It's got a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. That's right. It also has an on-off switch that can engage a travel lock so this thing doesn't start vibrating like one of your wife's tools as you head through the airport security. Definitely don't want that. It comes with a light. It's a 4000K LED spotlight. You can turn it off, so when you're underneath there in the shadows of your man bits, you can see everything you're doing. Comes with some guards, 1 through 4 different sizes. So I don't know why, if you want to give your bush a flat top or something, I mean, you can shape it any way you want. Also, wireless charging. Don't mess with cords and cables anymore. This thing drops right into a little charger, charges up. It's awesome. So check them out. They have deodorant and toner, as I mentioned. Everything you need to put a smile on your nuts face. And isn't that what we're all after? Look, 20% off plus free shipping using the code Whiskey Throttle at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you, and so will your significant other. All right. I also want to thank all of our partners. We're going to run through those guys, but listen, we don't connect with anyone on this show that we don't completely believe in. I put my own personal reputation on it. You buy a product that supports our show, you're going to like it. And if you don't, get back to me. I'll forward that to them and take that poorly crafted product and shove it right up their ass. You have my personal guarantee. That's probably not true. I don't have any kind of guarantee, but I do stand by all these products. That's 100%. So I want to thank all of those guys, and here's a list of them.
The Whiskey Throttle Show is brought to you by Yamaha. Join the Blue Crew today and take advantage of all that Yamaha has to offer, including amateur racing trackside support, awesome Yamaha contingency, Jason Rain's demos and instructional classes, and frankly, the most high-performing motorcycles available on the market today. Whether you're looking for a 4-stroke, a 2-stroke, a side-by-side, a quad, a boat, a generator, Yamaha prides themselves on absolute top-level quality and reliability. Rev your heart with Yamaha and join the Blue Crew today. Method Race Wheels, bringing you the lightest, strongest, fastest wheels in off-road for your truck, van, sprinter, UTV, or SUV. They've been dominating the Baja 500 and 1000 and every major off-road event around the world for years with high quality and performance. They also look amazing. They come in a bunch of different styles and colors for your rig, so check them out. You can get 20% off a set of wheels using our code Whiskey Throttle. No capitals, no spaces. 20% off using our code. Check them out. Troy Lee Designs is the leader in off-road motocross apparel and style. So whether you're looking for a cool new paint job for your helmet, maybe your name and number on your helmet lettered on, you're looking for new gear, you're looking for mountain bike gear, off-road gear. They've got the brand new Scout line and GP and SE models. Troy Lee Designs has it all. They've been leading this industry for decades, and they're going to continue to do it. check out TroyleeDesigns.com. SKDA is a moto graphics and seat covers company with several offices based around the globe. For too long, bikes and graphics have all looked the same. They just start to blend together. SKDA is working to change that. With super clean and unique design work, a bike with SKDA graphics stands out in a crowd and adds a touch of art to the world of moto. Hey, we need that. SKDA prides itself on providing premium customer service both before and after the sale is made. Visit SKDA online to view the current product range and get in touch with their team to get your bike refreshed. I want to just make a mention here that these guys, not only is their design way outside the box, very, very cool. They'll work with you on custom things. The products are incredible. Okay, they'll speak for themselves. But what's really awesome, and you'll notice this the minute you order one of these, man, they give you an email saying, hey, the product's been shipped. Hey, the product is here. It landed in this spot. Hey, it's coming today. Hey, your product's been delivered. They just so good about staying in touch with you and letting you know where it's at. Customer service is 100%, and that's just something that's rare these days. Check out SKDA. Here at the Whiskey Throttle Show, we're all about supporting brands that support our sport. And there's one tire company that has never walked away from the sport of motocross and supercross, and it's Dunlop. When times got tough and the economy took a crash, Dunlop stepped up and stayed with our sport to support it and the athletes and individuals that love it. Their MX53 line and MX33 lines absolutely dominate this sport. Every national championship at the pro level has been won in the last decade, and nearly every single amateur national championship at Loretta Lynn's has been won on a Dunlop. So if you're looking for high performance, you're looking for amazing quality, and you're looking to support a brand that never turns its back on our sport, there's only one choice for you, and it's Dunlop. Pro Circuit is the leader in aftermarket performance and quality. Whether you're looking for a little more horsepower out of your engine, some quality hard parts to improve the way your bike feels and looks, better handling through suspension or linkage arms, Pro Circuit is where you need to stop. It's your one-stop shop. You can go in there and get everything you need to make your motorcycle go from average to exceptional. Pro Circuit's got enough number one plates on their wall to side an entire home, and there's a reason for that. They're very, very good at what they do. The highest quality products with one goal in mind, and that's winning. Check out ProCircuit.com. Nihilo Concepts is leading the way in aftermarket hard parts. With their secondary on-switch device, something that was much needed in this sport, they've been innovating and bringing new products to market. Their latest is the new Nihilo Run Cool brake pistons. They're designed to be stronger than stock and provide exceptional cooling performance with less brake drag. Most OEM calipers pistons are made from aluminum that just can't hold up to the heat and extreme demands of serious racing. When they get hot, the aluminum will distort, causing loss of hydraulic pressure and brake failure. Nihilo's Run Cool pistons limit the area that boiling hot hydraulic fluid is able to come in contact with the piston, leaving 2/3 of the piston volume in open air with breather holes to enhance the cooling ability. It's made of a proprietary stainless blend, which is better at dissipating heat. You have issues with brake fade or brake failure, check out Nihilo Concepts among their many amazing hard parts and carbon fiber parts and titanium. NihiloConcepts.com. Seat Concepts is the leader in motorcycle saddles. If you're looking for a new cover or a new seat entirely, Seat Concepts is the place to go. They make custom seat foams catered to your height, weight, riding ability, riding type. They also have waterproof covers and foams that will not break down if you ride in a lot of inclement weather. And they pride themselves on being much more comfortable than OEM or any other aftermarket company. If you're looking for a new seat or a new cover, Seat Concepts, there's nothing better. Need to replace something on your bike that's worn out? Look no further than Pro-X. These guys aim to make everything OEM quality or better at an affordable price. And they've also got some new products coming. So right now, chains, sprockets, anything inside the engine internally, air filters. If it wears out, Pro-X makes it, and they make it at a quality level that's OEM or better. And they've got some new things coming that are awesome. A complete engine rebuild kits for the Polaris RZR 800s. Need to replace something on your bike that's worn out? Look no further than Pro-X. These guys aim to make everything OEM quality or better at an affordable price. And they've also got some new products coming. So right now, chains, sprockets, anything inside the engine internally, air filters. If it wears out, Pro-X makes it, and they make it at a quality level that's OEM or better. And they've got some new things coming that are awesome. A complete engine rebuild kits for the... If you've got a little Grom that's looking to get started in the motorcycle world, The best way to get them going is on a Stasic bike. They've got multiple sizes, so from your very young Groms to those who are a little more grown up, you can start them safely. They've got controls that allow you to control the speed so he can't get going too quick. They can touch the ground. There's not a lot of noise to distract them. It's the perfect way to get your child involved in motorcycling at a very young age. And if you've got a kid who's already out ripping, there's series popping up all over. For those of you in Southern California, go to www.ameminicross.com and join their local series. If you're outside of this state, contact your local track and ask them about starting a Stasic class at your local track. Get over to Stasic.com and check out all they've got going on. Motul USA, we lean hard on these lubricants to keep us on the track and on the trail. And Motul has proven their quality over and over, most recently with their Dakar win with Ricky Brabeck. They're sponsoring Supercross teams. They're diving into our sport again full throttle, and we're stoked to have them on board. Amazing products, top to bottom. Motul USA, go check them out. And finally, last but not least, Specialized Bicycles. If you are in the market to start pedaling, this is where you want to start. They've got great entry-level bikes all the way up to the Cadillac, the new Levo e-bike, anything in between, man. It doesn't matter what kind of riding you're doing. Go check out and start with Specialized. Don't waste your time on something that's going to break. The derailler's not going to shift after a couple months. Get something quality. These guys make it. Specialized leads that industry. Thanks for watching and listening to the Whiskey Throttle Show. Be sure to like and subscribe to get notified when new shows go up. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And visit whiskeythrottlemedia.com for additional content.